into your life, whether you like it or not. And I needed it, and little did I know how much I needed at the time. It was difficult, but that's kind of what structured the beginning stages of my life. Having a kid early, raising kids, and then being in the Navy. You don't have a lot of choices. You're told where to be when, dress this way, be on time. I think those are fantastic things for youth to learn.
I say it all the time because I get asked that question. That's probably one of the most common questions I get asked these days is from younger men that are like, hey, I want to join the military. What do you think? And I say the same thing. It's like, as messed up as our country is politically right now, the service changed the trajectory of the rest of my life. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you self-worth. It teaches you that grit to fight on, and like just the things that are inherent in being part of a military unit, they serve you the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And as strange as the political climate is right now, I've been telling a lot of people, like like Zach, he's like a son to me. Mm-hmm. He's very interested. He was interested in the Air Force, and he was kind of going back and forth. And I finally arrived at the point where I'm like, maybe we sit out a couple of years, but like in our generation, it was a perfect opportunity to help you grow and take that next step, almost like a rite of passage, which is actually what I talked about last week. A lot of young men in most cultures around the world have some type of rite of passage that teaches them how to grow into a man. And I think for a lot of us, that was the service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a rite of passage. Yeah, because both my dad was in the Navy way back in the day. My brother was in the Navy. He's a lot older than me, about 10 years older. He was, and I kind of saw them and what they were doing. I'm like, yeah, I could probably pull that off. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I did. And so that kind of started. I get hired in 1996 by the sheriff's office. And again, I'm not that guy that planned that my whole life. I'm a believer. That's very important to me. And I think the good Lord just put that on my heart. And at the time, it was completely different, mid-90s than today.
Yeah.
Where today, everybody's recruiting for the same pool of people, right? And we're like, well, we're hiring anyone we can, basically, in the profession to a certain extent. And back then, you'd have 400 people show up at a high school track to run the physical fitness test first.
Wow.
Right? It was crazy.
So it was a sought-after position.
Yeah, and I'm this kid who knows nothing about law enforcement. I have no law enforcement in my family.
So you're, 22 at this time?
22, probably just turned 23,
okay.
Right when I actually got hired, but the process takes like 6-8 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, somewhere in there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And for some reason, a specific agency was put on my heart. That's the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. It's the only agency I tested for. And again, at the time, you could test for multiple agencies, right? And you just hope you get picked up by one.
Yeah.
And that's the only one I tested for. I ended up doing okay. And I ended up getting picked up off that list. I passed all the crazy background stuff that they do. They do background investigation, polygraph tests, there's medical tests, psychological tests. Pass all that stuff. I got hired, and I haven't looked back since, man. And little did I know that would be my career for the next, I'm just under 30 years now, right? About 27, 28 right now.
Dang.
And it's been, one of the best things that ever happened to me. It's been really good. So that's kind of just where I come from, because we'll probably get into politics a little bit, I imagine, today.
Yeah.
And that has never been on my mind as something I ever wanted to do, but it did happen. And so kind of that brings us up to, I was a patrol deputy my whole career, meaning there's different things you can do in law enforcement, or almost anything you want to do, really. Detective stuff, there's office stuff, you can be on the streets, and that's where I gravitated to. So the only thing I wanted to do when I got into cop work was work a dog. That's all I wanted to do. And at the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office is kind of a sought after position. And so very little turnover. So jobs didn't come up very often. And it took me we call them like an internal test. You do an oral board, all that kind of stuff. And it took me 3 times to where I finally placed where I might get a shot. And then 10 years later, I actually got that job.
Okay.
So I worked the road for 10 years. Then I got the job being a K-9 deputy handler for Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. And then I did that for the next 10 years. I tested for promotion. I think it was 2014, and actually turned it down the first time they came to me. So I'm like, nah, I want to keep working a dog. I'm having fun running around like graveyard shift, catching crooks, that type of thing.
What type of dog were you?
We ran Shepherds the whole time.
Okay.
Now they're really gravitating toward Malinois.
Yep.
And Shepherds and sometimes a mix of both. We have a mix right now that's a fantastic dog. And but I always had Shepherds. I'm sold on the Shepherds kind of from back in the day. I've seen what they can do, man, and they're amazing dogs. So
yeah, that's cool, man.
It was the best job in the world, dude.
That was something that I had Malinois my male lived for 14 years. So me and Jenny had Malinois for a long time. And that's because that's what we were running in Iraq. Yeah. And so since I was gone all the time, I was like, man, I know what these dogs are capable of. I need some at my house since I'm not home all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we got some Malinois. But there was always a side of that. Professionally, I never worked in the military or in law enforcement, but I was always kind of drawn to that. There's something that's just cool. You know what I mean? Were your dogs apprehension, like bite work or explosive, narcotics detection, or crossing over, all that stuff?
Oh, we call them patrol dogs. Yeah, they bit people.
They do all of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And people, when people say that, I always got to explain, especially when I'm in front of school kids or something. We don't want mean dogs. We want dogs that come into schools, right?
Yeah.
Preschools, kindergarten, whatever, and be super nice. But then if I get that call, they can switch gears, go out, and we can go catch the baddest of bad crooks out there.
So that's why you like shepherds.
Yeah, they're well,
Because Malinois are fucking psychotic.
Not always. You're right. They are a little bit. Yeah. Shepherds on meth is what we call them. But they're awesome though.
So
man.
my male Malinois, we lived in that little house right over there.
Yeah.
And there was a tire in the yard, and he would bite that tire and spin like 3 or 4 times and throw it. And bro, I'm talking hours and hours and hours on end. He'd just be out in the yard throwing his tire as far as he could, and he snapped his canines off doing that. And we had to put titanium ones in.
That's funny. I did that with my patrol dog.
Oh yeah.
He busted them he busted them a different way, but he busted both his canines and he had to put metal teeth in. It's crazy.
Well, and I didn't even know this was a thing, like dog vets. Dog dentists. And they said, hey, we have to cap them because they got snapped. If you don't cap them, they can die from infection. Mm-hmm. And the price difference between simply capping them and putting titanium ones in was almost the same. Yeah. So I was like, all right.
We've lived some of the same life, man. Yeah, I lived that. I remember that. We went to the dog vet and the dog dentist in Shoreline. It was expensive, but no, we took care of that dog. We had to take care of our dogs because they worked for us, so it was awesome.
Do you look at dogs, and I always go off on tangents. That's the podcast, bro. Mm-hmm. But I know there are handlers in certain teams that look at dogs like a tool, like it's your patrol rifle, your dog, your med kit. And then there's other handlers that are like, no, this is my partner, you know? And I always thought like the partner relationship seemed to make more sense, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And from my experience being around a lot of dog handlers from back in the years, most, if not all, think of them as their partner. Oh
cool.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Are you going to put a dog? You never put a dog into a suicide situation. That's not a dog call. That's something we learn right away. But you do put a dog before a human, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have that in your head a little bit. And some people struggle with that. So no,
I like a lot of dogs more than a lot of humans. So
Well,
I'll throw that out
right
there.
Yeah, exactly. Dogs are pretty cool, man. Yeah.
Do you got any cool canine stories you're interested in sharing? Because I'm sure you got a fucking ton of them.
I've been doing this so long, Greg, and I am the worst storyteller when it comes to this stuff. But this is so people can kind of get an idea. There's one that I kind of look back to that, man, it could have been bad for me, but the dog and so we get, they as a canine handler, I did it for 10 years, and you got the call that everything else has failed, right? They're calling a dog to come in and find a crook. Mm-hmm. Usually when we were tracking somebody in the woods in Snohomish County, that's usually what it is, right? That's kind of our bread and butter. Yeah, we find people, and if the handler allows the dog to bite them, yeah, we bite them. They're allowed to protect themselves, and then they're allowed to protect us, and that's what they do. And they get really good at it. And so we got called, we had a guy in Bothell actually in a duplex holed up in the attic. He had a bunch of assault rifles up there. That was the word. So we had our kind of what we call them our PROAC teams go, and they're pretty certain the guy was in there, that type of thing. And usually the canine guy gets called well after the fact. Like, okay, so I start heading that way. We get there. Sure enough, it all ends up, it is what it is. There's a guy up there. He won't come out. So we either pack up and walk away, or we go get this dude. Well, we're going to go get this dude because he's a bad dude. We didn't get him off the streets, right? And so we do all the tactical planning. We do all the right things, all that kind of stuff. But it comes down to a human being and a dog going in. That's what it comes down to, right? So we did all the right things. We go in. We clear both the ground level and the second floor of this duplex. And we're being all tactical, all that kind of thing. Dogs, I got my dog's name at the time was Bruno, really good street dog. And he clears, there's no one there. We're like, oh, crap. Well, from experience, we know. You got to look up, man. You got to look up.
Which from a tactical perspective, for people that aren't familiar, clearing an attic is probably the most difficult thing you can encounter in a residence.
Yeah, it's and this is actually a good example of probably some of what not to do too, to be honest with you. So the attic access, so we got to do it right because we've confirmed the dude's in here.
Yeah,
we just don't know where he went, and So the attic access is in the kind of the master bedroom upstairs. I still remember this. And we couldn't, either we didn't have ladders or couldn't find them or whatever. So there's a bed. So we moved the bed so we can get up. Well, everybody looks to the handler, like, you're going to put your dog up there? And we train this and all that. But when you're in training, you got all these cool tools and all that kind of stuff. Well, this was like a patrol call that we had to figure stuff out. And so I was pretty good with handling Bruno. So we get the crawl space. And again, I want to make it clear to everybody that we did all the work. We called him out. We tried to get him to
course.
And the answer is no. This guy is the guy that he's not going to come out, right? I'm like, all right. So it comes down to it. And so I'm on his bed, not really a stable ground. I got like this 85, 90 pound German Shepherd, and I'm not the biggest dude in the world. And I'm trying to get him up. And I remember still looking at, he was a sergeant, Marcus of the day. And I go, hey, look, because this guy's supposed to have assault rifles. So this is probably not the greatest plan that we've ever had. And one thing too, because I think you'll appreciate this. We called the SWAT team to come out because of the assault rifles this guy's supposed to have and all that.
Yeah.
And we got turned down for that. So it was literally, you're either going to go get this guy or not. Okay.
Dang.
I know. And so I'm like, no, we're going to go get this guy.
Is Snohomish was it a full-time SWAT team back then?
We've always been part-time and still are.
Part-time.
We're regional
Okay.
now, but it's part-time. Yeah. But typically, that's
their
bro, bread and butter.
A barricaded suspect with rifles. That sounds like,
I think
I don't know what else you need in the Matrix to meet the requirements.
I know. I'm with you. I don't even know what to say. I'm totally with you. This should have been a SWAT call. Absolutely.
But the other side of the coin is, for people that are unfamiliar with the professional law enforcement, is a lot of people think you have every resource available at your fingertips. And a lot of times you're scrambling to make shit work.
You are. And you're told no sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And like if they even, if the upper ranks, like the SWAT, like if you're not 100% certain the dude's in there, they're not going to call everybody out. It's his time. It's expensive. It's whatever. I disagree with that. I tend to. I'm like, if you think a guy's in there, that is what they do all the time. Like, bring him, whatever. Okay. They weren't coming though, right?
Yeah.
So then we got the decision to make. Yeah, we're going to go up. I get him up there. It was not super tactical. It was not great. I look at the sergeant next to, I go, dude, if shots ring out, I go, because we shoot at what you know, not what you think you know in law enforcement, so you don't get in trouble, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, you better throw some rounds up there. And if the dog goes down, fine. If I go down, okay, you better get some rounds up there.
Yep.
And so it was one of those, man. It's like you really started to think, it's like, okay, this could be the one, right?
Yeah. Because
And,
like in the military, you can shoot at known, likely, and suspected enemy locations. That ain't the case.
Nope,
in law
it's not the
enforcement.
case at all. But I looked and I said, yeah, you better do something if this shit goes down. And so I get the dog up there. It was not super tactical. It was not great, but he gets up there and it's a good dog. He didn't care about what the attic was like to insulate. He would tear it up there. And so he went up there and then he doesn't come back with anything. And I'm used to just waiting for the screaming with this dog. That's all I needed to do, right? Get him in the right place, right? And he would bite the guy and hold him until we can get him down safely and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't happen. I'm like, oh man. So now the human has to go up. We let the dog do his job, right? That's his job.
Yep.
And the dog goes all the way in the attic and he comes back, and I kid you not, Greg, you can't make this stuff up in law enforcement. He has the sling of an AK-47 wrapped in his teeth. The dog comes down and carries it to the attic hole because they're attracted to scent, right?
Yeah.
They'll latch on to anything that has this guy's scent on it, and he latches onto the sling and carries it. We're like, oh, there really are assault rifles
he
up here.
brings you a rifle,
I'm not
huh?
joking. Yes, to the square hole, that accesses the attic. We're like, oh man, this is the one, but no human. So we're like, oh crap. So we get a plan together, and so the dog's still up there, but no one's found yet. So we go up. I go up. So my cover person comes up, and it was a duplex. And then so we figured out this guy had busted through the sheetrock. There's fire sheetrock that separates the.
And now he's on the other
He's on
side.
the other side. Thank God we had cleared that one too, because this was a pretty bad dude. So we already had it cleared, but we didn't know he was over there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We didn't have anybody inside or anything. We're like, oh man. And so I'm
What
like,
a fucked up situation
Oh,
for
yeah.
those people.
oh, yeah. So we get them out, put the dog in the other side. He goes all the way to the end, and it worked out great because he bit the dude. We get the dude. And usually for the most part, not all the time, once a German Shepherd bites onto somebody, the fight's out of him for the most part, not all of them. And the fight was out of him. He gave up, and it was all a good thing. But leading up to that, yeah, that was a messed up call. That could have went really bad. And I'm not even saying that we did all the right things tactically as cops, because we probably could have done some stuff better, right?
Yeah.
It should have been a SWAT call from the get-go. Just should have been. It wasn't. We decided to go get that. Worked out in our favor. But yeah, that is one that has stuck with me through the years, that looking back, you leave, it's like, I'm probably kind of lucky to be here right now.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You know,
I tell people that all the time. Like, if you spend enough time operating in any type of tactical environment, you're a fool if you don't think luck and good fortune
part of it
plays a big role in your success.
Yeah, this is what I talk about people all the time. In law enforcement, and I'm sure it's the same in your world in the military. We put uniforms on. We drive these marked patrol cars all over the place. If somebody wants to 100%. Get us, they're going to have an advantage on us. You know, I mean, you got to be tactically aware. You got to be aware. You can't be paranoid all the time. You can't live like that, but you got to be aware, right?
Yeah.
But no, we go out and everybody knows who we are, and that, so, yeah.
No, it's weird, man. Like, I was, I was with the Marshal Service for 5 years, and when I switched over to patrol, just like put a uniform on and get in a marked vehicle, I don't think I ever got comfortable with that, to tell you the truth. There's always something that's kind of like, no matter what intersection you're in, no matter what parking lot you're in, all eyes are on you.
Yep.
And a lot of people are naturally afraid of you and suspicious of you, and it's... there was always a level of discomfort for me, which was kind of weird. Like, some cops would go out to eat at restaurants, and I wasn't that guy.
Really?
I'd pack a lunch and go park at like the radar tower or somewhere kind of remote, you know? And I don't really know why that is.
Yeah.
Even when I was a marshal, like if we had to leave the courthouse, there were several different things downtown LA that, like, the jail was next door, and then we had courthouses that were next to each other. And if I had to walk between them, I'd usually throw an overcoat on.
Oh, wow.
I don't want people seeing my U.S. Marshal across my shoulders, you know? And it's just because, like you said, man, if face to face, if someone wants to confront me with violence, I'm very comfortable with that. But if someone wants to get you, that's not how they're going to approach you.
Yeah.
And bro, I think about that here at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Like, I put out a lot of content. This podcast has a big reach.
Yeah.
And you know how, like, it doesn't matter what your message is or who you are. Some people are going to like it, and then some people just fucking hate you.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at like Dimebag Darrell, John Lennon, like even musicians, people get pissed off and go kill them, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, if someone just came into the academy one day, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
I keep a loaded firearm in here while I'm teaching, but still that means I have to make it 30 feet into here and then now address a threat, which is probably unlikely to be successful in something like that. Yeah. And so again, I don't live in fear. It's like, oh my God, what if somebody comes in here? But it's just something I think about, because everybody thinks like, oh, if you were a Ranger or a SEAL or a SWAT officer, that you're like untouchable. I'm like, no, bro, they just got to get you when you're not ready.
Yeah, there you go.
And it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but yeah, I'm probably somewhere in between that. I mean, I carry most everywhere I go. But yeah, you can't run around paranoid and stuff like that. I call it, you do got to be prepared though, especially in this day and age. You just never know.
Well, and bro, something I say on the podcast very often is we have to live in probability, not possibility.
There you go.
Because if you live in possibility, fucking every corner in the grocery store you'd be clearing. You know, it's soup aisles next. You ready? All right, near far or some bullshit.
Yeah.
But some people take that tactical mindset to the point where it does impede their personal life. Yeah. A deputy I used to work with, every single day when he would come home from work, he would clear his whole house, and not clear it because it's like, hey, I want to get some reps in, right? I need to make sure there's not someone in my house.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I don't know about that,
That's
bro.
not me.
Yeah, no. That's starting to encroach on.
I'm hitting the rack at 6 a.m. once I'm up graveyard shift's over.
Well, bro, this same guy, and this will let you know how crazy the Marshal Service is, right? Because he was a supervisor, right? Oh, yeah. And I always, there's a lot of good aspects of the Marshal Service that I'm proud of, and I'm glad that I did it. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of a fucking circus at 2 times. This dude was a supervisor, and out on the range, he asked another deputy to shoot me in my body armor while I wear it to show everybody that we trust our equipment. And bro, he told me this, like, all proud of it. It's like, got to trust your equipment. This is important stuff. And it's like, well, in my experience, the number one rule of equipment is that it will fail you sooner or later. Mm-hmm. And if you want to test your body armor, put a watermelon in it or something.
Wow.
Right? Nope. But he didn't want to get shot with 9mm or 40. He got shot with 38. And I wasn't there on the range, but it was such a big thing that the whole office knew that he did it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm like, bro, in my opinion, that should be grounds for termination.
That's just not right.
No,
I mean,
dude.
I've heard that before in law enforcement world. Never real though. I've never actually have heard that.
So funny story on this, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but you can ask Scott Wells about this, because do you remember the case where the two women got murdered out off a mountain loop on a hike?
Absolutely.
It was a very, very like grotesque murder scene. And Wells worked that. Fast forward all these years later, this supervisor is like, oh, you're from Washington State? Man, there's a case up there that's always fascinated me. And do you have any connections to that? And I'm like, well, it just so happens that one of my best friends was either lead detective or held some type of position on that case. So I connected them. And Wells is like, bro, what I figured is through the federal prison system, some word got passed, and now he had a lead, right? No, bro. He wanted to just talk to him about the case, and he gave him a whole list of ideas that he thinks that would be good to investigate. And,
oh my gosh.
And Scott was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
First of all, I already investigated all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I hope Scott still has that email, because it was the most bizarre thing ever, dude.
Is this the same guy that wanted to be shot on the range?
It's the same guy.
Oh my God.
That's why
there's some red flags there, dude.
Yeah. Also same guy that clears his house every night. Okay. So. But yeah, getting back to like being the overly tactical guy, probability versus possibility. Like if I walk into a restaurant and the hostess seats me with my back to the door, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Because if that's what fucking gets me, then that's what gets me.
I always have been too. That's just me as a person. But most people aren't that way though. In this world, they're just not. But yeah, I've always been that way too.
I also think, and I know this sounds dark to a lot of people, but when I was in Iraq in 04 and 05, those deployments were so violent. We were getting in engagements on a daily basis that I came to terms as a young man that life is finite and my switch is going to get turned off at any minute.
Yeah.
And I used to think like, this is likely my last deployment. And I would tell myself that simply because now it allows you to operate without fear in your heart. It's like, if you know the end game is like, I'm probably not getting out of this one. Now we're just out here having fun.
Wow.
And seeing what happens.
Yeah.
But like that period of time made me so comfortable with my own death. It actually felt kind of freeing.
Wow.
You know? And now all these years later, I still, obviously, dude, it's not like I'm not hoping it happens tomorrow,
right?
But it's not something that I'm just absolutely in panic over.
Yeah.
And that ties into the COVID stuff too. So many people were so afraid. And I used to tell people, hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I know this is going to sound shocking. You're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's part of this life cycle. And once you kind of immerse yourself and have a front row seat to death, which I'm sure you had plenty in your long career, it can still be sad. It can still come with emotions, but it normalizes it. And I think the American culture, I mean, dude, when my dad died, you make a phone call, these dudes show up in a car that you've never met before, they pull a sheet over him, and then they zip him up and they rush him away, and I never saw dad again.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like where most cultures have like an intimate closure process where they're more connected to the death process. And I think Americans, we've kind of disconnected from that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Yeah. And then this, the whole new generation's coming up, and I got kids too in that generation. So I don't mean any disrespect at all, but I worry about the next generation that's coming up.
Bro, if you're not worried about the next generation, I don't think you're being honest with yourself.
And I don't think it's like, I'm an old guy. I turned 51 yesterday, man. I don't think it's like old
Happy
people.
Birthday.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. And I don't think it's old people standing around thinking that their generation's better. I'm like these phones and stuff, and these kids that are addicted to being on their phone that can't hold a real conversation with people. That worries me, man. As a dad, as a human being,
everyone.
Yeah.
And again, like I think about this too, is like, did the World War II generation look at my dad and think that guy's a soft pussy, or the world, the country spiraling downhill? And like to a certain extent, probably.
Yeah.
But if you don't think that the rate in which it's happening is starting to move exponentially, like I don't think you're being honest with yourself.
I agree.
We have, I mean, I just saw, and who knows, it was on the internet, so it must be a fact, right?
Absolutely.
But they've done studies that said 30% of high school age kids are now identifying as some type of letter in the LGBTQYX spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that's 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean 30%? And again, dude, I am more of a libertarian than a Republican.
Yeah.
Like if you
Absolutely.
if you want to have a homosexual relationship and you want to pretend you're a fucking cat or what, like all these weird shit that's starting to become mainstream. If you want to do that in your own home, I don't fucking care, right? Even if you want to go out in public and that's who you want to be, I also don't care. But the fact that the agenda is getting pushed on everyone inside of public schools, which is funded by the Department of Education, i.e. you and I, we should now be able to have some say on it. And I don't think that your agenda should be getting pushed on my children. And anybody that thinks that's like, oh, I'm a right-wing wacko or a bigot or something, it's like, no, teach my kids reading and math and history. And then when they become people that are sexually interested in other people, they can explore that on their own. They don't need the fucking government, you know? Another thing that is like, bro, you're just going to make me go off on a tangent here.
Hey,
right?
we are, absolutely.
But to tell a young person, I think this is the darkest thing that surrounding this whole issue. To tell a young person, you're actually in the wrong body.
Yeah.
Like that's the most disempowering thing you can tell someone. And like what's very typical for, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old boys and girls is being confused, is finding an identity, is moving from peer group to peer group, trying to be accepted, trying to find where you fit in, right? I don't think there's one human being on planet Earth that made it out of high school without some uncomfortable moments of self-discovery.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of growing and going through puberty and all that stuff. And so now when people are in that moment of confusion and on that journey of self-discovery, you got these motherfuckers saying, actually, you were born in the wrong body. How dark is that to tell someone, man?
Well, in my opinion, it is dark and it is unacceptable what we're doing to kids. And to me, it's I'm a simple dude. I try to keep things simple. And I agree with everything you just said. Like I get along with everybody. We're in Western Washington in Snohomish County. And I ran a organization of 850 people and I cared for each and every one of them that represented every lifestyle you could imagine. And what I care about, are you a good person of character, right? Yeah. You're going to be real with me and I'm going to be real with you. That's what I care about. What you do is fine. But leave our kids alone. They're forming their minds still, right?
Yeah.
The government, number one, has no business in this area of kids. And schools, like you said, can we just teach them reading, writing, and math and some history and something like that? Let them grow up. Let them figure out stuff. Let parents run the day, not the government.
100%.
That's where I'm at with the whole thing. And you're right. Then we get dinged as like these right wingers. I just lived this in 2023, so I know not so much on this topic, right?
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. We're like these right wing crazies. I don't think so. And I think the tide is turning in that, but ever so slowly, and maybe not so much in Western Washington. But I think it is.
It's definitely starting to turn because people are realizing, like, have you seen the gays against groomers movement?
Yeah.
It's like what is unfair is that they're taking this radical narrative and then they want to attach it to the whole gay community. A lot of gay people are in monogamous relationships. Yeah. They're married. They're doing what we all do. You're paying your bills. You're building your future. You're starting your dreams, like doing all the things that you're doing. And now those people that are living a normal life, and again, we are in Western Washington. Yeah. A gay couple is not something that's strange. For listeners that are in fucking Montana, I don't know. You know what I mean? Right. But those people don't want to be associated with people swinging their dicks at kindergartners at a fucking library drag show.
Yeah.
They're like, no. Just because I'm a homosexual person doesn't mean I'm into that.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more people stand up against that.
And people think they hear what you just said about the drag shows in school. That's actually happening. Like that is happening. And normal, I call them normal people, which I include myself in, I hope, right? We gotta start speaking up to that stuff.
Well, bro,
we just have to, man.
Dude, I deal with kids every day. Yeah. I teach kids. I empower kids. It's funny you say like they're one of the examples you gave. They look at their phones all the time and they lack communication skills, right? I tell the kids when I'm addressing them, hey, look at me in the eyes. Yeah. Like I'm talking to you right now, and I'm not coming at you because I'm the professor and you're. It doesn't matter what our positions are. When you speak to another person, engage that person, you know? And bro, you can see like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, you can see the light kind of turn on.
The light comes on, and that is a life lesson that will stick with them their whole life. And good on you for taking 10 seconds, 15 seconds out of that teaching moment, right? Yeah. No. Look at me. And this is the reason why. Absolutely.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is like I engage and coach and mentor children 5 days a week here, right? Or 4 days a week here. Coach Will runs Fridays. But I would never think it would be appropriate to like go teach jujitsu in a Speedo.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just not okay.
Like that's not what people want their children to be exposed to when they're bringing them to a place to learn a new skill and develop something. It's the same as school. When I send my kids to school, I should have the expectation that they're not going to get exposed to a bunch of weird shit.
Yeah.
And bro, like the phrase weird shit's kind of subjective because it's different to everybody. Yeah. But I think 99.9% of us can agree that men wearing bathing suits, reading to our kids, we're good without that.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, if that makes me a fucking like
then
far
so
right.
And I hope people are coming to that conclusion. Like, if that makes me a far right person, then so be it. It's not far right. It's normal is what it is.
And then bro, here's the other thing. If you want to go host your drag shows and you get all your drag people together and do your thing and read stories and shit, again, I don't give a fuck, dude. Right. But I don't understand what that has to do with a public school that I'm funding that my children are attending, which they're not anymore. I pulled them because because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, I've told the story on the podcast 1,000 times, but I'll say it one more time because for you to understand, like one of the main reasons I pulled my kids is when my oldest at the time was 9 and came home and said, Dad, I don't know if I'm going to be straight or lesbian when I grow up. Wow. And I was like, you know what? I'm fucking 9.
9. Yeah.
What the fuck are we talking about, dude? Yeah. And I told her exactly. I said, listen, you don't need to be even concerned about who you're going to be when you grow up. When you grow into an adult and become sexually interested in other people, you can worry about it then. Right now, yesterday you were worried about catching bullfrogs in the backyard.
Exactly.
How about we focus on that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then I'll think of the kid, that same 9-year-old that maybe doesn't have you in place as a dad.
That's right.
And they go the opposite direction and what course that sets them on. I just don't think it's okay at 9 years old. And I think it's okay to say that in society, no matter how much grief we would get for it in Snohomish County. It's time for, I think, people like you and me, regular parents, that maybe they can't pull their kids from public school. Okay?
Yeah,
maybe they just can't.
Yeah,
especially in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
Man, it's expensive out there. But maybe they can't, right? There should be a certain expectation, even if the government is running the schools, that they're just teaching them the basics.
Yeah.
Teach them to get through life, not this other stuff. Let the kid worry about that later when their minds are actually formed and they're adults.
Are you familiar with Andy Frisella?
Yes.
Okay, so Andy I listen to Andy's podcast regularly, and I agree with this. And I wish I could just sell it as my own idea, but everybody's heard Andy say it 1,000 times, right? But he says what he would do when he becomes the overlord of America, which I think he may, make teaching a $300,000 a year job that is ultra competitive.
Oh, wow.
Ultra competitive. And if you can't hack it and you can't toe the line, you're fucking gone.
Yeah.
Like if you're making $300K a year, these are the expectations. It's hard. You got to fucking be driven. You got to be on the path of like really striving to make these kids grow and become better people. And if you're a fucking low performer, you're gone. And he goes, and we could make it competitive with that wage. And he's a numbers guy. He's built some gigantic successful businesses. Yeah. And he goes, dude, flat 10% tax rate for every American. Yeah. We could easily pay each teacher $300,000 a year. As long as you fucking cut all the billions of dollars to this country and billions of dollars to that country and start to invest it back into our own, because you could 100% do that. And it's like, because right now, what is attractive for people to go into the position of teaching? Yeah. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what pulls people in. But what we see is a lot of people that are agenda driven moving into that. You know,
full disclosure, I've got, one daughter that teaches here in Lake Stevens.
Yep.
And then another one that will graduate next year from Western and wants to go into teaching.
So you got a front row seat to it then.
Oh, yeah.
You probably hear plenty of crazy stories.
My wife works in the schools too here in town. And I got to respect her position with the school district, right?
Of course,
she comes home and says some stuff. And even just locally here, I mean, it's some of the stuff
I heard something literally the day before yesterday. Is that everybody's heard the litter box thing going around, right?
I don't know what that is.
Schools requesting litter boxes in the bathrooms because some kids identify as cats.
You're joking.
Have you never heard that?
No.
So, bro, that's a thing. Look into that.
Are you like pulling a prank on me right now?
I know. That's what it feels like, right? Well, what I heard the other day is that Lake Stevens School District has denied all requests for litter box.
Okay, that's good.
And I was proud of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not that, I mean, you wouldn't think something like that takes courage.
What a monumental stand for society.
But in today's world,
yeah.
Oh, bro, she identifies as a cat and you're going to deny her the ability to go to the bathroom?
You're messing with kids' minds.
There are people that would say that to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I'm not trying to diminish this kid's worth or who they believe they are. But at the end of the day, we have to teach our kids to live inside of reality.
Yeah.
All right.
Reality. Yeah.
You're not going to be able to go to some fucking job interview when you're 26 years old and start meowing at the person across the table. Right. They're going to tell you to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to fucking pay your bills or eat.
Yep.
It's not unreasonable to tell people, hey, this is reality and this is fucking fantasy.
Yeah.
And again, you go home at night and you put your cat costume on and you let your boyfriend walk you around the house. I don't care.
I don't either.
But the rest of society is not going, we don't have to accept that as normal human behavior.
Yeah.
You know?
I had not heard that, dude.
Yeah,
that's just crazy.
So good on Lake Stevens.
Yeah.
I heard they denied it.
They took a stand.
There's definitely, the pendulum is starting to swing back, as you stated.
Yeah, I think so too.
And, you know, as far as like being people that lean conservative or on the right side of most things, I don't think that it would be good if the pendulum was always on our side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Going back and forth probably balances things out and is probably a blessing in disguise. But it feels like it's starting to swing further and further. Yeah. And when it's on the far left, it was fucking crazy. Yeah. And when it comes back, is it going to come back with so much momentum that now we're going to be on the far right? It's like, I'm not sure, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I lived this all of last year to a certain extent. I mean, it was a local race for sheriff, but politics definitely played a part in it. And I don't know, Greg, I think people are so tired of Republican, Democrat, political party garbage. You mentioned you're probably leaning towards libertarian. I would call myself an independent.
Yeah.
I just don't give a rip. This will offend some people that really helped me last year. I don't give a rip about political parties.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Are you doing the right thing or are you not doing the right thing?
And
that's what I care
And when I say libertarian, I don't mean like affiliated with that party.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
It's just my ideology is more of like, you do you, I do me. And
leave me alone.
And leave me the fuck alone.
That's how I,
you know, absolutely. And which was actually what America was founded on.
Yep.
Religious freedom, freedom of speech, like you go do you,
yep.
I'll go do me.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders is if it's just not feasible with 350 million people doing different things. Because at the end of the day, human beings, we're tribal creatures. Yeah. We have this innate need to lean on each other and help each other and be part of a community. And that's kind of been dissolved now.
Yeah.
And I think that might be why everybody's fucking kind of spiraling out of control.
It could be because they get engrossed in this stuff, man, and they just you can't get them out. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, I live this.
It's
man.
funny you say that because I was just listening to something the other day, and I was watching some RFK stuff, which I don't know what your opinions are on him, but a lot of the things that he says, common sense would make you say, yeah, what he just said makes sense.
Yeah.
Now people will freak out because he said something that was anti-gun at one point or whatever it is, right? You can find like a soundbite somewhere and now that dude is basically Hitler, you know? Yeah. But there's something nice about an independent catching a lot of steam.
Yeah.
Because you're exactly right. Like, fuck these parties, dude. Yeah. The Republican Party, the Democratic Party, they don't care about you or me as individual citizens. They care about maintaining power. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's fucking dark. And it's become like it's almost like a monarchy these days.
It absolutely has. I mean, look at our current. I don't know how deep you want to get into this stuff. But
Go deep,
our
bro.
Current president,
we're a full tinfoil hat fucking show here.
Our current president, 45 years plus now.
Yes.
In government. That is not what our government was set up to be like.
For the people, of the people, by the people.
It was supposed to be anybody, well, if you meet the requirements, could get elected.
Yep.
You go serve, and then you come back and actually have to work for a living and provide for your family.
A novel concept, right?
Right. And now that's not. And these people are becoming millionaires and billionaires because they stay in Washington, D.C. for so dang long. It's again, Andy has said this a lot on his like a two-class society.
Yeah.
Like you have the people in government in Washington. And I guess I'm one of those persons, but I'm on a local level, right? I hope I'm not one of them. But and it's like you can see it and it's not okay. And like the president, you get 2 terms, right? You get 8 years and that's it. It should be common sense that it should be that way for the Senate and the House and our representatives. Absolutely. Dude, there is no benefit to people being there 50 years.
A couple things that have to change is term limits for these motherfuckers, period.
Yep.
Right? Like, dude, making money and making wealth inside of government, that is not what you were there to do.
Yep.
Government positions are supposed to be selfless. Leadership is a burden, as you fucking know.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll get in. I mean, we're only coming up on an hour. We haven't got into your
I told you we could both talk. Yeah. So here we go.
But like term limits, and I don't think that they should be allowed to fucking trade stocks either, man.
No, not at all.
There's so much fucking corruption in there. Yeah. I forget what it's called, but there's an Instagram page, a political tracker, I think it's called. And what they do, and this guy has built apps that allow you to match your portfolio to exactly what Nancy Pelosi's doing or Dan Crenshaw's doing. And he's like, hey, if they're making money with inside information, we should be able to too. So he's built these algorithms that just, you can invest your money and it just matches exactly what they're doing. But he talks about it every single day about how different companies will, like Chuck Schumer got on the Senate floor and was like, these Zen pouches are terrible and you shouldn't. Zen targets children and like all this stuff, right? And I'm like, since when does the government care about nicotine?
Yeah.
What's really going on here? Come to find out that members of Congress had stock in Zen's parent company, and I guess they sold them all for some reason. So they're using their position to affect the market. And bro, in my opinion, that should be fucking treason.
Yeah, it should be absolutely.
It
should be illegal. Yeah, and this is the thing where I think you'd feel the same way. I can't speak for you. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat.
Of course
it should not be allowed. Again, the party stuff does not matter to me, but they cannot become millionaires and billionaires simply by serving in the government.
Well, because what that's going to do,
it's not okay.
What it's going to do, even if they are not, if they're skirting that line of legality, right? At the end of the day, if people can see, dude, I go become a senator and I do it for this long, man, I'm going to be able to leave with $100 million. Like, that is not what should incentivize people to serve in the United States government.
Yeah. Those are some big topics, dude.
And so what people always say to me when this comes up, well, then you can't bitch about it if you don't go serve. And it's like, well, I'm not ready to go fucking serve in politics because it would just end up with me killing somebody at a meeting.
It's rough, dude. It's rough. I've lived it.
But you went and did that.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst for you? Were you a canine officer or were you a sergeant?
So I did take the promotion eventually.
Okay.
I think I got promoted in 14. So I was a sergeant. working graveyard shift at our South Precinct. And for those of you who don't know Snohomish County, it's our busiest precinct down there. That's what for over 2 decades, I drove a marked patrol car. Sometime for 10 years, I had a dog in the back seat and wear a uniform to work. That was my passion. I loved it. So that's what I did. And I chose to stay there. I did promote, and then I ran a graveyard crew, again, stayed south, and for 5 years. And so that leads up to 2019, which is when I decided to throw my hat in the ring to run for sheriff in Snohomish County. Yeah.
What were some of the things that was kind of the catalyst of you deciding, like, okay, I'm assuming you liked the sergeant position.
Yeah, it was a blast.
If you did it for 5 years, especially working graveyard,
it's a blast,
you're
man.
one of them.
Oh, yeah. I know.
What was the catalyst that said, you know what? I need to throw my name in the hat for fucking sheriff.
A couple things. One was internal, to the sheriff's office, which I've learned it does not resonate with people out there, but they weren't treating people right. It was the good old boy stuff. I couldn't stand it. I had a front row seat to it. A lot of people don't know this. I served as the union president, which is kind of for 12 years, the longest serving union president. So I worked with several sheriffs, got along with them for the most part, but I could also take a stand when needed to. So I saw a lot of stuff. And people ask me, well, why'd you get into politics? Why don't you try to work within the system? I did, dude. And I had the position to do it. I tried. Nothing was working. But that's kind of like the lesser of the important of the two. The main one was, and again, I'm born and raised here. This county is very important to me. And I saw what was happening. So we all know that we're one county north of Seattle. Yep. Seattle is its own entity. We don't even need to go into that. It's a mess. Okay.
Mess.
It is a mess. And people, I think, for the most part, don't want that up in Snohomish County. Well, and I saw it creeping in.
I was just going to say, even though we don't want it, we all saw it creeping in.
We absolutely did.
You started seeing homeless encampments popping up. I mean, bro, there was homeless encampments next to Hagen's and Lake Stevens
everywhere
for a while,
Yeah. So in 19, this is what happened is when you're the sheriff of Snohomish County, you run the third largest jail in the state of Washington. And jail is what we do, man. It's like we are the law enforcement component for society. And that's great you have to have it in a civilized society. And the sheriff at the time in 19 put all these booking restrictions in place. So at the time it was the opioid epidemic. Now it's kind of switched to fentanyl, right? And if you were high on drugs, you couldn't get them into jail, right? Unless it was like a major felony, then you could.
So would they expect deputies to either kick them or sit on them in the hospital for?
No. This is something I tried to talk about in 23. We had to take them back where we got them. That was the official policy of the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office in 2019.
So they arrest them for, say, a car prowl.
Yep.
And they take them to the county jail.
Yep.
And they deny booking because they're under the influence of narcotics.
Oh no, there was no verification. All they had to do was say, I smoked heroin a half hour ago.
Oh, so
and they're like, you're out.
Yeah. And because I booked in King County during that time, and I'm here to tell you, people get a couple of those keywords. I'm feeling suicidal.
Right.
There's a couple key words and it's like, oh my God, now you have to take them to the hospital. And for us, it's not feasible.
It's not
to have an officer or a deputy sitting on someone in a hospital over a car prowl because now the rest of your shift, you're assigned to that guy.
And people think, I'm really glad you brought that up. It's kind of, we're getting in the weeds, but it's good because you're absolutely right. Especially, and I can only speak for the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. We can't have somebody sit in the hospital for 4 or 5 hours. We can't.
No, of course
we have
not.
other calls we have to go get to, right? When you call 911, you expect a response. And
response times are already tough.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what they are in Snohomish, but in Seattle, sometimes they're 45 minutes. I mean, bro, that's where my slogan, no one's coming to save you, comes from. It's like, dude, 45 minutes seconds count in a violent encounter or some type of emergency. 45 minutes is basically not responding. That's just coming to clean up after the fact, right?
Yeah.
And so, these people understand, hey, I say these certain key phrases and now I can't be booked into jail.
I know.
Like, what are we talking about,
The
dude?
crooks know the game, man.
Yeah.
And as soon as these legislators in Olympia pass these laws or some policy comes out, the crooks know it on the street. It's crazy.
You know what's crazy, though, is because I was in super liberal King County.
Yeah.
And when I would be booking someone and they would say, like, oh, I'm suicidal or I'm high on opioids or whatever it is, you'd call your sergeant and say, hey, prison's not accepting, and they'd say, kick them, right? Yeah. So what we would do is literally drive 2 blocks up the street to Harborview, open the door and say, hey, the emergency room is right there. Go be seen. That's our good faith effort to take them to somewhere where they can get help.
All that. Yep.
But to take them back to an encampment or something, like that ain't my fucking responsibility.
No, it's not. And it should never be.
No, it's insane, dude.
And in 19, I gave this example, real example. So I'm a patrol sergeant, and when we're hiring like crazy, so we'd get new kids on our crew, and then sometimes they're just in training. Sometimes I'd get them permanently. Got this kid brand new off FTO, that's field training. So he's graduated, he's done. Now he's on my crew, right? And we get a vehicle prowl in progress in South Snohomish County, unincorporated Linwood. And the citizen he concealed carry. So dude breaks into his neighbor's car. Actually, he runs the dude down and holds him for us, right, at gunpoint. And so I don't recommend people doing that, because when you bring a gun to a confrontation, it can happen quick, right?
Interjecting yourself into a violent
I'm not
encounter.
glorifying this, but I'm saying that's what he chose to do before we got the call. I can't change it. It happened, right?
Yeah.
So like, all right, we'll clean this up for you. Yeah. And it's 5:30 a.m. So we've been working for almost 12 hours. We're about to go home. So we look at the new kid and go, this is yours to clean up, right? Right. Have fun with it. And so you got to get statements. You got to collect evidence. Is it the crime of the century? No, it's a vehicle prowl, but it's important to those people. One, the guy who just caught him, and two, the victim whose car was prowled.
Yeah.
So we talk to all the people. We do the right things. He brings the person to Snohomish County Jail. Now we've all gone home at this point, because it's well past 6 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
Make sure he's good. I go home, come back the next night. I said, hey, how'd that go last night? You get him booked and all that kind of stuff? No, the jail turned me away because he said he was high on heroin. I'm like, what? And it said, so he drove him back to, this was the area kind of 164th. I mean, we never would put him back in the neighborhood, right? You got to work within the system. And I had to drive him back to where I got him. I'm like, oh my. And that, from that moment on, that just resonated with me. Like, what are we doing? Right. Yeah. And that's not law. That's policy that can be changed by any sheriff or any leader, right, of an executive organization. That could be changed overnight. How do people in those positions sit around and think, and they got time to sit around, I know, because I've done it now, right?
Yep.
And think that's the right thing to do for the community. Yeah. It's not. Now, it's because...
Let's build policy that favors criminal drug addicts and enhances people in our society being victims.
It emboldens them. It's so brazen.
And that's the thing, bro. These people know, right? Like, if you show up and you as a police officer, what's one of your aces in the hole that you can always, hey, like, do you want to get arrested and go to jail? Like, I have the authority and I have PC on this. Yeah. And if you fuck around and you don't work with me and you're a prick, you're like, we have the power of, the word slipping my mind right now. What is it?
Like persuasion?
No. The only two times that we can't use it are second DUIs and DVs.
Oh, discretion.
Discretion, yeah. For some reason. Yeah. The power of discretion allows us a pretty wide field of what we get to do as enforcement officers, right? Yeah. And once you take away, like on the far end of discretion, I can fucking hammer you. Yeah. Right? And then on the other side of discretion, I can let you off with a warning. Yeah. Right? A lot of, like, people don't realize, like, every single thing a cop does isn't just some like absolute in a manual. It's not. You use your discretion. Yep. But once you take away the far end of discretion of dropping the hammer on people, and now your discretion field is only this big instead of this big, now people don't respect you anymore because they don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. We're living that right now, actually, in Washington State. So, but yeah, that's in 19. That's what we were facing, man.
Dude, I mean, I don't know if I should speak for Wells, but I'm going to real quick, because he said he had a call the other day where one of his new guys was conducting an investigation on a possible theft. And he showed up to back him. And he said the way the guy was talking to the deputy, and he was a suspect. Yeah. He said he'd never seen anything like it before.
It's crazy out there. It is right now. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is. Wells walked up and was like, hey, bro, you see this gray fucking beard? Yeah. You think I started this yesterday? Yeah. Sit on the fucking curb, shut the fuck, and like had to take over command presence.
You have to in those situations, man. They got to know who's boss out there. And it's not an ego thing.
No, of course it's not an ego thing.
But they got to know there's a standard here and don't cross this line.
Well, and here's the thing, bro, because a lot of people are like, fuck cops, they're fucking power hungry. And you know what? Those cops exist.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to sit here and say that. I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't. But you also have to understand, like, when I was a police officer, I spoke to everybody with respect.
Absolutely.
Until I didn't need to anymore, because that person is now taking the interaction towards a place where I have to let them know what's up.
Got to.
Yeah. And that is part of dealing with the criminal mindset. Like go watch how gangs deal with each other. You know what I mean? Like these people understand and operate in that world. And if you're going to interact with those people, you have to be able to be part of that world. And sometimes when we're done with your bullshit, hey, I'm fucking done with you. You understand?
Absolutely.
And people think that that's, again, as an ego trip. Bro, I wish that every single traffic stop and every single contact could end with a hug and a high five.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I would like.
Yeah.
Because, dude, I'm sure you'll agree, like, the really, really negative interactions with people, even if they're criminals and they're shitty people, a negative interaction, a lot of times, man, it's still heavy on you as a person.
Oh, yeah.
And you start to stack those negative interactions. And again, bro, I was at the port. The port is a fucking, compared to most agencies, the amount of calls, the types of calls, it doesn't even compare to what you guys were doing. And I can only imagine how much that just starts to stack up on your fucking emotional well-being.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I hope I've done fairly well with that over the years. I guess other people can be the judge of that. But yeah, and like what you said, whether it's dealing with gangs or sometimes back in the day, not so much anymore, the outlaw motorcycle gangs we deal with every now and then, especially down on 128th we would. And this is what I found earlier on in my career is that you got to treat everybody with respect. And for the most part, there's always an outlier, but for the most part, even in those situations, right, we'll probably be deemed on opposites, especially like gang people, right? But especially the ones that have been in the game for quite a while, if you're respectful to them, they will give that respect back for the most part.
Fuck yes.
Now,
dude.
you got to watch out for the 14, 15-year-olds. They know nothing. They don't respect anybody or anything. But the guys have been in the game a while. And I learned that early on, and I had some good kind of, I don't know, mentors, if you were people I could look up to, that I'd see, man, that, because, you're dealing with crooks all the time. You're lied to every single day, almost every call you're on. And I learned that if you just treat people with respect,
100%, man.
they're going to give it back to you. But there is a time where you got to flip that switch and say, okay, game's up.
And bro, like, because as a deputy in Los Angeles, I dealt with the gang culture very often.
That's real stuff.
There.
Oh yeah.
And bro, if you're cool with them, 99% of the time they're cool with you. Yeah. Bro, I had a guy. I was on the U.S. Marshals SRT team, so we would take the high risk warrants.
Oh yeah.
And I say that like it's cool, but we would get like one warrant a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that was a full-time team, I'd probably still be down there because that was the coolest part of that agency, right? And we cuffed this dude. And he goes, hey, bro, there's tons of people out on the street. My whole neighborhood's watching, man. Is it cool if I talk mad shit to you as you put me in your car? He goes, that'll give me street cred, bro. Is that cool? I was like, you know what? I don't care. Talk shit to me, right? Yeah. And so we walk him out of the house, and he's like, you motherfuckers, you're lucky I'm in cuffs. It'll be a fucking different story next time, you fucking pigs, blah, blah, blah. Put him in the car. I get in. He's like, thanks, bro, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's stuff. It happens, man. That is cool. Yeah.
But like their world is built around that, Yeah. So like you saw all of this crazy shit going on. Yeah. And you're like, I need to be in a better position to affect change ultimately.
Tried to. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because I ran for office. I did get elected. So I guess I'm a politician. I don't see myself as a politician. I truly was.
Well, again, it was a period of time in your life. A 4-year, is that what it was?
It was 4 years,
4-year period of time.
And 19 was weird because I decided to get in this political game. Your spouse, your family has got to be on board or don't do it. It's not worth it.
What was that initial, like, okay, I want to do this?
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess we're starting a campaign. I find a campaign manager. I start funds. Like, what does that fucking process even look like?
Should have. Well, you have to make the decision first, and I was kind of wishy-washy because it's like, who wants to run against their boss for a year? I would run, if I chose to, which I did, run against my boss, the sitting sheriff who's been there 6 years, who has all the support of government, both parties at the time. This was 19. And
what party was that? Sheriff affiliated under?
It's nonpartisan, which
it's
I
nonpartisan.
love.
Okay.
Everything should be nonpartisan in America.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, nonpartisan. It's
okay.
Great. There's always affiliated with one party or the other, though. It's
kind of behind closed doors.
You get endorsements all over the place, and so it does happen. But it's nonpartisan. When you see the ballot, there's no Republican or Democrat by it.
Okay.
I think everything should be that way.
I think so too.
So
because then it's like, hey, do you know what this individual human stands for, or do you not?
Exactly. The individual human. Yeah, exactly. I think things would change really quick if that was the case in America, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. But it came down to two things, and I'll give my wife, I've told the story publicly, I'll give my wife a little bit of credit, is that I was kind of wishy-washy. It's like, I was him and Han at home. I'm like, I'm not going to beat this guy. He's a 6-year incumbent. He has all the support. I mean, come on, even if I have the right message, what are the chances, right? She's like, dude, stop. And she's not always talked to me this way, but she did this one time. And she's like, there's two things here. And she goes, if you're going to choose to do this, you better think you can win, or I'm not going to stand by your side. We're in this thing to win it, period, end of story.
I love
and
that,
two,
bro.
Yeah, and two, she said, you better not change who you are. I married you. I go, you dress like you dress, talk like you talk. Don't become one of them. Just be who you are. And I got to be honest, Greg, it was from when she sat me down and told me that, it was that blunt. I'm like, I can do that. I'm in. And we'll see what happens. Yeah. So that was that literally was the deciding factor. But the stuff that you said, like you find a campaign manager and all that, dude, I didn't do any of that. It was us.
It was you guys.
It was us, man. Oh yeah. And we're like, well, we should do this or we should do that. And you start like, I'm not a big social media guy. It's kind of become a thing for me. So I'm like, start this Facebook page, Adam Fortney for sheriff and all that. And you have to get all the background stuff in. The state's super strict on like financing campaigns and stuff like that. But
is it super expensive?
Yeah, it wasn't for me. So in 19, no one paid attention to me, dude, what I was doing. No, like I would say like the Public Disclosure Commission, that's who kind of monitors this stuff. And the other guy that I was running against, he didn't pay attention to what I was doing for the most part. He didn't work real hard. And we went out and worked our tails off, dude.
So he didn't probably even consider you a viable threat to dethrone him.
And I know that for a fact now after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't. He's like, hey, I got this thing in the bag.
Well, that's one thing that's so strange about politics is it's like, and maybe on the smaller you get, like on a local level, the financial aspect of it isn't as massive. Yeah. But like, I mean, I got a friend who's running for Senate and it's bro, if you don't have fucking tons and tons of money, you're no longer a viable candidate.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand, obviously, certain aspects of a campaign require funding, right? You got all your fucking signs all over the county and shit. Like at some point, funding has to be a viable part of your campaign. But on the other side of it is, do we only want rich people to be in political power?
Right. No, we don't.
If some dude is fucking like, just runs some small fucking mom and pop shop, but understands small business, understands the community, has good leadership qualities. Yeah. Why? I want that motherfucker in there. Yeah. But it's almost not feasible anymore unless you have some massive amount of wealth.
Yeah, well, we had no wealth, I can tell you that. And we just went out and worked hard, man. We raised about $38,000 the whole year, which is chump change in politics, even for a race for sheriff. He raised way more than me, but he just didn't do a whole lot of stuff.
So when you're working your tails off, what does that look like? Are you like knocking on doors and shit, or?
So there's a whole story to that. No, I didn't knock on doors in 19. We used social media a lot, and we had kind of a rule within the campaign. I didn't have a campaign manager. We literally ran it. I ran the Facebook page, but we had people we would meet with that were kind of the political world that would give us advice and stuff like that. We had a rule that said if we got invited somewhere, whether it was one person to go sit at Starbucks for coffee or it was a group of 50 or 100 people, our answer was yes. And we would just figure out the logistics later. And we did that. We stayed true to it. And I kept that rule as the sheriff, which became very important for me. And so we went everywhere. And I have done no public speaking in my life up until this point. And I didn't start it out pretty rough. And then you kind of learn as you go, as I'm sure you do in this podcast, you kind of figure stuff out. And we had the right message though. And I was able to get it to enough people in combination of him not working real hard. Dude, it worked. And we overwhelmingly beat him in 19, which was unheard of at the time. I think we shocked a lot of people on election night. And ourselves to a certain extent, because you never know. There's no primary, dude. There's no polling with a local race. I mean, you can, but you got money to do it. And we didn't have money. I mean, we would literally, our account would get down to like nothing, and then we'd hope we'd raise money at this next event, dude. Sometimes we'd have just a few people show up, right? But we stayed consistent, and we're out there doing it all the time. And
obviously the community believed in your message.
They did, and people didn't want the chaos of Seattle up in Snohomish County, and that's kind of what I hit home.
Yeah.
You know, we got to be able to book people in the Snohomish County jail in a civilized society. That people really bought into that. That example I gave about the car problem, people couldn't believe that, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, it's actually true, right? It's true. That happened. And times that on a mass scale in Snohomish County and think of what that does to the crooks and embolden them like we talked about. So anyway, that's kind of how we got in. That's a very brief version, but yeah, we ran, kind of beat the odds and got in there, and then holy smokes, now I'm going to be the sheriff in 2020.
What day do you assume that position in? Is it
Jan 1?
Jan 1? Okay.
Yeah.
What a crazy, here's the thing, bro, if COVID didn't hit, your entire, who knows what the fuck your professional career would look like right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because all of those things that you ran on, again, like that shouldn't, hey, we're going to arrest criminals that are terrorizing your neighborhoods. That's not a partisan issue.
It's not at all.
You know?
Yeah.
And you won an overwhelming majority, which tells you it wasn't being looked at as a partisan issue.
Exactly.
It's people that are like,
point.
all you have to do, I challenge anyone that lives in Snohomish County, go to the park behind Pike Place Market right now and tell me how many people you see laying on the ground high on fucking opioids or fentanyl.
Yeah.
Do you want that up here? You fucking don't. You know, I don't even like taking my kids. I used to like to go to the waterfront and the Ferris wheel and like downtown Seattle. Not a chance, dude. Yeah. The last time I took my daughters down there, we watched a kid overdosing on heroin, foaming at the mouth and fucking shaking shit. And everyone's just walking by. And I actually said, I stopped. I said, look at that guy. Dad, no, what do you do? I said, no, I want all three of you to look at that guy. And I'm not being mean. I'm not being cruel. But that is a result of very, very, very bad choices. Yeah. Remember this moment. You know, so outside of a possible teachable moment, I don't want that shit in my parks.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I have no doubt that your leadership and your approach to law enforcement probably would have led to a very successful career as sheriff.
Yeah.
But then when COVID-19 hit and you stood up against the cabal, that was basically political suicide.
Yeah. It was. It was. Absolutely was.
But guess
I didn't
what?
know that.
But guess what? You can look yourself in the mirror and be proud of yourself.
Dang right. You're dang right.
And that's what fucking matters, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've learned that. I learned it kind of the hard way, but I learned it. Absolutely.
So then what did that look like? You assume the position and you want to start making these changes that you foresaw in our flawed system. And then literally, I mean, what was it? 3 months later? Yeah. COVID was in full swing, huh?
Yeah. This is, it's brand new sheriff. Nobody expected me to win. People are looking like, what's this guy going to do? And I have all the stuff that we just talked about. I call it kind of the cool cop stuff is what I ran on. Like, we're going to enforce the law, right? I was going to change the pursuit policy because he wouldn't let us chase anything. It was dumb, right? Which we've lived now for 4 years. And so, but then COVID hit. Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. Literally a pandemic, right? Historic pandemic. I'm like, okay. So this is in a nutshell. I think everybody took
it's just politically driven as fuck too.
Oh yeah. Oh, now looking back, yeah, and I think we'll get to that. And so I'm everybody took it super serious at first. I think we all did,
of course.
And then we get into, I think it was fairly soon. I think it was April of 2020. So we're several weeks into the pandemic. This will be a key fact. All the jails in the country basically closed. Now, remember, I just ran on keeping the jail open. Pandemic, because you got to keep people alive because we were worried, right? I mean, we're talking refrigeration trucks stacking bodies.
Bro,
they shut down Angel in the Winds Casino.
Bro, I know. I remember
I'm
it
like,
all.
oh my, what did I get into? So I'm trying to do all the right things. And, but you get several weeks into it and I'm like, something ain't right.
Something's not right.
It just didn't sit right in my gut, right? My heart. I'd say my heart.
That's what I tell people, bro.
Yeah. I'm like, something's not right. And in this position, we're a fairly large agency in Snohomish County. You have people to support you and stuff like that. I have a director of communications. I have the utmost respect for her. She's still there. I'll leave her name out of it. And I started I learned to be kind of a vocal guy. I kind of speak my heart, right? And I probably should have been more in tune to the political consequences, but I type up this thing. Bro. I'm like, this governor's leaving pot shops open, but literally regular folks can't go to work. I can't put people in the jail, but people can go buy marijuana. Like, I don't care. We passed that law 10 years ago, right? But how is that essential?
100%.
But a guy that runs an excavating business can't go work on a 10-acre plot of property where he's moving earth.
Unless it's a government contract he's working on.
And see, this is
like you started to put the pieces together. It's like anything that is beneficial to the government was somehow deemed essential.
Amen, brother.
And everybody else wasn't.
It's supposed to be the opposite.
And bro, for me, again, I've told this story a lot. For me, the straw that broke the camel's back was the tabs on my truck expired.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, and dude, right in the height of the pandemic, right? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, businesses can't be open. But you know, and again, like you, I started to kind of question things because it just didn't feel right. Yeah. And dude, bro, trusting your instincts is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
If you served in fucking any type of like high risk scenarios, you understand that your instincts keep you alive. Yeah. And there was something in the back of my head that's like, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. And so I looked at my tags on my truck and I'm like, they're expired. I'm going to call. There's no way that a little yellow or green sticker is going to be essential, but let's just see. Yeah. And I called the one of the licensing places. They're like, hello, blah, 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 licensing or whatever. I was like, oh, you guys are open? Yeah, we've been deemed essential. I was like, okay, so a little piece of paper that goes on a license plate is worth risking your life for.
Life and death, remember?
Yeah, that's
this
what I'm saying.
Life and death.
It's life and death, and it's worth risking your life for so the government can get their $68. Yeah. But every other person's business is absolutely not. And I was like, because of this, I'm done with your game. Yeah. Right? And then the other side of it is, I wasn't seeing anybody die. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I wasn't seeing anybody get sick. Sure. I mean, I shouldn't say I didn't see anyone get sick. Well, we almost all got sick, but it felt like we got the flu. Yeah. And at the time, we're fucking psychopaths, grandma killers. Fast forward 3 weeks ago, the CDC says, moving forward, the COVID-19 virus will be treated like the flu. Yeah. Oh, shocking. Yeah. You know? And so, yeah, you saw all that shit happening.
The key to my whole thing is this, is and you already kind of alluded to it, is so government contracts were approved. You could work, right? You could go make a living for your family, but you had to work for the government. Yes. Under contract. So the Snohomish County Courthouse was under a massive renovation at the time. When I took office, I inherited it. I had nothing to do with it. And so literally my office is being renovated. And so I would show up, we showed up to work every day during the pandemic. My whole staff did. They're awesome. And we would walk into construction continuing at the courthouse. I'm talking electricians, sheetrock, landscapers out, you name it, right? And I'd walk into that every day thinking, wait a second here. Every small business in the county couldn't show up to work.
Yeah, but we need a rhododendron.
And remember, this is life and death. Life and death. But these guys can show up to work because they're on a government contract and work on the Snohomish County Courthouse. I finally, after seeing that day in and day out, I'm like, I got to say something.
You have to, bro. Right. Because if you don't, all the people that are getting fucked are going to look at you, man, you're part of the swamp. Yeah. Oh, your garden can get, your office can get renovated. Yeah. You can have new fucking plants planted out front of your office, and I'm fucking starving. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, people trying to provide for their families, and that took the risk initially to start a business in Snohomish County.
Well, and the biggest thing for me, bro, as a police officer, like what made me make that viral video was like, I don't have legal authority to do these things. Yeah. And bro, like that can be litigated. There are people that are like, no, have you heard of the 14th Amendment and martial law and all this stuff? Like the government can take control of everything. I was like, okay, well, lawyers can litigate like the highest level of education and the sharpest fucking lawyers in the country can sit down and litigate the same fucking topic and have two very differing opinions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not here to argue with the people that are telling me I'm wrong. I'm simply saying, as a police officer, what I feel in my heart is this is wrong. And bro, if you're a cop and you feel something's wrong in your heart, I think you should probably say it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's why I did it. Yeah. And it wasn't like a right versus wrong thing. It's like, this is how I feel. Yeah. And it sounds like that's the same fucking place you landed on.
Yeah, I came out and said it, and probably my mistake. I don't know if that's the right word or not. It was political. I took on the governor. I'm the brand new sheriff, literally 4 months in. Yeah. And
you went pretty hard, huh?
It was hard. That's probably a mistake at the time, looking back.
Fuck that guy, dude. That's what I say.
Now
you probably can't say that because you're still
I pretty much can say that because now we have the luxury of looking back in hindsight in history.
That's right.
We were right, dude.
That's right.
We were 1,000% right.
Yep.
And when he hung on to that, what do they call it? The
emergency
declaration or whatever it was for longer than any other state in our union. That shows you where he was at with the whole thing. That was unacceptable.
And bro, that's what I said. You want laws for law enforcement to fucking enforce put them on the books.
Yeah.
It has to be litigated.
Yeah.
Or it has to be legislated.
And this is the whole thing.
And it wasn't. And he just kept kicking the can down the road. No, another 30 days of emergency whatever order. And it's like,
yeah. And so that's where I said, so I got kind of political with taking on the governor, right? But the message, so that's on me. I own it 1000%. But the message, I think, was a common sense message is, hey, look, the Snohomish County sheriffs aren't going to go out and arrest you for being out of your homes. That was a thing at the time. People, it's hard to realize now, but it was a thing at the time.
How fucking easy people forget.
Yeah.
Bro, you can't go to parks.
Right.
Yeah. I had buddies in Nevada that got pulled over and asked for essential papers. Yeah. And I remember saying, what is this, 1930s fucking Nazi Germany? Essential papers to be on the public roadway.
Yeah.
Fuck you, man.
And this is the funny thing. And looking back now, it's easy to say this, but so every police agency, I'll just stick to even just Snohomish County, not even Washington State. We all had the same policy. We weren't going to go out and arrest people. We really did. Although I was the one who came out and said something about it and said, we are not doing this. And by the way, there's all these things that they're just not considered. I feel like the government of the state of Washington should treat people equally. And clearly during COVID-19, that was not the fact, right? That's all I was trying to say, Greg, but it got a little political.
Yeah. And so, I mean, now you stood up against Overlord Inslee.
Yeah, and he's using my name at press conferences and stuff, dude. That was uncomfortable.
And now they're going to stop at nothing to fucking destroy you, dude.
And they
Fuck these people, bro.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's what happened. Leading up, years later, the 2023 campaign this last year, that's exactly what happened.
But even before that, I mean, they fucking launched this massive effort to have you recalled
several times over.
Pretty much immediately after that, right?
Always immediate, yeah.
So what was that process like? Because I think everybody kind of understands what the word recall means is basically try and have you removed from power.
Yep.
But what does that process really entail? What does that look like?
They have to go out and get a certain percentage of signatures from registered voters and then turn them in. They got to be approved. And then it will go to basically a vote, if you will. So
I wonder if the signatures they got were from people that were literally like emotionally manipulated. Adam Fortney's going to get your fucking grandmother killed.
That's what it was.
And
they didn't turn any signatures after, I think they had 3 or 4 months to gather them. So it was a stressful time for me. It was horrible, but,
so they were going to recall you and then they never were able to obtain the signatures.
They didn't get enough signatures and they didn't turn any in at all, which I'll never know for certain, but it tells me they didn't get married.
Scare tactics.
I think so.
That's what it fucking is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane, dude. Yeah. And so then so you never went through the official recall process then because they couldn't get the signatures to recall you?
Correct.
Got it.
But,
okay.
I mean, it was a court battle, went all the way to the Supreme Court about whether they could or not and is legally sufficient and all that. So I had to go out and raise money and all sorts of stuff and lawyers and all that. It was a mess,
And you know what these motherfuckers are doing by doing this to you? They're impeding your ability to make your community safer.
Oh, yeah.
Which was your entire purpose and goal for moving into this position.
I will say this, screw them, because we still went out and helped the community.
Good,
I think I was about the most community-driven sheriff this county's ever seen, and I think I can stand by that. I put my record up against anybody, even a sheriff who's been there longer than me.
Well, bro, I can tell you, I'm very connected in this community.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet the person that's like, fuck Adam Fortney.
Yeah, and if they've met me and get a chance to, a lot of people do say that because I've met them.
Yeah.
But if they sit down and talk to me, man, I'm like, this is what I learned, Greg, in the tumultuous 4 years that I was a sheriff. If you can get in a room and talk to people, we have so much more in common than we do. There's always going to be the crazies on the left and the crazies on the right. I'm not going to win those people over. But if you can get in a room, sit down and talk to people, we usually have way more in common. That's what I tried to do when I was the sheriff. Yeah.
Well, bro, and that's anti to the political narrative of divide and conquer. Like everybody's always trying to drive a wedge in between everyone.
You bet they are.
And you're like, hey, let's just all sit down and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure
That's
stuff
cool,
out,
man.
Yeah. Cause we were able to do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, 4 years, man.
So even though you were dealing with all the recall bullshit, it didn't necessarily impede your ability to kind of affect changes in the areas that you were hopeful to affect changes in, huh?
I think I can say with certainty that we were able to go out and I use the word impede. Yeah, it impeded. I can't, because it took time out of my day, man. I had to deal with it. I had to meet with people. I had to deal with the legal stuff, right? I had to. But we still went out and did what we thought was the right thing for the community, for the sheriff's office, and for fighting crime in Snohomish County. We did a lot of cool stuff that had never been done before. That part I am very proud of. And I tried to get that message out in 2023 to the extent I could. But let me tell you, I think once I said those things about the governor, that other party, man, they came after me. I'm just a little kid from Snohomish County, man. They threw everything politically they could at me.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about raising money at the 19 campaign, which I just raised chump change.
Yeah.
This was the most expensive sheriff race in history in 2023 in Washington State. It was crazy because they threw so much at me.
Oh, I'm sure, dude.
It was crazy.
Do you know any of those numbers, or is it just?
I think it was around 250 or so each. We were neck and neck with money the whole time during the whole year. Yeah. Yeah. So it was crazy.
God, that's nuts.
It is nuts. I can't even believe I talk about this stuff sometimes, to be honest with you, because it's not really who I am. I just went out and talked with people. We worked really hard. There's some things I definitely could have done different in 23, but man, they made it hard. They did. And they won. It worked. And they divided people. They painted me as the bad guy. And that's the part I don't like about politics. I cannot stand that stuff.
Yeah. It's like, dude, just stand on your policies.
Yeah, you want to come and talk policy with me, to my opponent all day long, every day, man. And I'll win that battle every day. If you want to paint me as this right wing, they use the word constitutionalist, proud boy. That stuff is stupid, man. And that's what happened.
But also, since when is being a constitutionalist a bad thing?
Yeah, I think we all raise our right hand, right?
It's like, yeah, that's exactly right, dude. Oh, you mean this document that I'm fucking sworn to uphold and defend?
Sworn to uphold, absolutely.
And now that's a negative thing?
Right.
So what was their, did they ever attack? I mean, obviously they attacked you like you just said, but did they ever try and attack your character or your morality, or like try and be like, oh, what you don't know about Sheriff Fortney is that in 2001, he touched his secretary. Like, did they ever try and do any fucking crazy shit like that?
They did, actually. Yeah.
Oh, shocking.
And this is the thing with politics, when you have a party behind someone as strong as they were with my opponent in 23, is they will do anything like that. And because I had met with some of the same political people that run campaigns and stuff, I know how it works, man. You're not going to pull one over on me. And so what I came out after the election, I said, I lost. I lost. But when you call someone a racist or a Proud Boy for a year, that's going to impact some voters, right? And I saw her do an interview where she said, I never called him a racist. And this is my whole thing with, this is my answer to that is I can't, she never looked me in the eye and called me racist. I'll give her that. Okay?
Yeah.
But her whole premise of her campaign against me was painting me as that person. So she absolutely did. Right. And there's there's certain segments of the campaign. Like there was, the truth about Fortney. I hate to even say that. I don't even know if it's still up or not. This whole website, right? That she has enough distance to say, I have nothing to do with that. That's someone else. And I know that's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, especially when a big party is involved in this stuff, they're not going to allow something like that if they didn't want it. They wanted it out there, Greg. And that's the part that pains me is it's just, that's not who I am as a person. And
well, bro, racist. That was the fucking triggering term of last year.
All of 4 years.
And bro, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've lived all over the country. I've served in different capacities. Have you seen racism inside of the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office?
Absolutely directly. No.
Yeah.
No. And I'm trying to be fair and objective,
bro, and that's the thing. I'm trying to be fair and objective too. And when I say this to people, and I hammer cops when cops are doing fucked up things, right? Like I am not the guy that's gonna. No, I'm gonna protect the profession of law enforcement. Yeah. Like I'm not saying this to try and protect the profession of law enforcement. Yeah. I'm saying this because in my own personal experience, I've never, not once, have I been like in a patrol car and be like, dude, you see those black guys? Yeah. I bet they're up to no good, dude. Let's hem them up. Like we have enough shit to deal with day in and day out that's real that we never had to fabricate things or paint people with a broad brush. There's enough shitty people out there doing shitty things that
there are.
Your day is filled up dealing with those people. And here's the thing. Are there cultural things? Like when I was in Los Angeles, were the majority of the gangbangers black or Mexican? Yeah. But that's not racism. That's just, those are the areas that I was operating in, and those were the people that were partaking in this criminal activity. But as far as the individual law enforcement officer having racially driven motives, I've never seen it, man.
Yeah, and this is the thing is, so 2020 hits and George Floyd is He's killed in.
I forgot all about that.
I know.
You mean he died of a fentanyl overdose?
I know, dude, but it was a thing for police executives across the country, right? And so I got the pandemic I'm trying to deal with. I already said some stuff about that, and then that happens. I'm like race and policing. When I ran in 19, Greg, I never thought I was going to be talking about race and policing, right?
Yeah.
But now I kind of have to, right? And I'm a white kid from Snohomish County. All right. I'm no
racist.
expert.
You're racist by default.
I'm no expert, but you know, what people don't know is when we talk about being either libertarian or I'd say independent, and we just want to do the right things. Right. So I brought, you mentioned if I've seen racism, cause I'm a white guy. I brought people in of all backgrounds voluntarily at the sheriff's office. I said, let's get together and talk about, I like getting together and talk about stuff. That's what I do. Right. Bring people in of all races. And I sat and listened to them, man.
Good, man.
And I gotta admit, I missed some stuff, man. As a white guy who hadn't lived as a person of color in Snohomish County and didn't go through some stuff that they did, right? My skin color was different, okay? But I learned from them, I'm like, man, that's really good feedback. I learned some really good stuff though too, is that I'd say almost all of the time there hasn't been racism. For me, it was whether it was inside the Snohomish County Jail or out in policing in the streets, right? And so I learned that, hey, we're in a pretty good place internally at the sheriff's office, although some stuff did come up that I think I missed. And then I always had an open door policy, and I kept it for 4 years. People knew they could either call me up or walk in my office and say, I think you got this wrong. And I'll give a lot of credit to this deputy that came to me. And he goes, you got this wrong, this internal group. He goes, one, it's fine that you're doing it. I think it's a good thing. But you got to get out and talk to the community, man, not just cops and corrections officers, right? You got to talk to people outside of the sheriff's office. You're right. I do have to. And I did, man. And he introduced me to a very diverse group of people. And I would say we were on opposite ends of the spectrum, where we're talking people that agreed with everything that was going on. Remember, the country was raging at the time, burning, literally burning.
Yeah.
They were like kind of for that stuff, right? They didn't want to meet with a cop right now. And so, but they did. That's the key, Greg. They were willing to take that step and come in and have a real conversation with me, even though in their hearts, they probably didn't care for me because I wore the uniform. And we scheduled, I'll end it here. We scheduled for, I think it was a 90-minute meeting for them to come out. I never met them before, but we were going to talk about anything and everything. I'm an open book, right? And that meeting lasted 3 hours.
See?
Just that 1 3-hour meeting with these people face to face and having a human conversation. Man, I am still personal friends with them to this very day.
Well, bro,
because it started there.
You can't, and this is another reason I like to do the show in person.
Yeah.
I don't do the show on Zoom at all. Because when you sit across a table from someone and look them in the eye, it tells you a lot about who they are.
Oh, yeah.
Apart from the words that are coming out of their mouth, right? And I'll bet every dollar I've ever made, those people sat down with you and are like, oh, wait, we may have some differing opinions, but this isn't a bad human being.
Right.
And maybe you felt the same about them.
I absolutely.
And now we have a path forward.
And you know what I found out about them? We're the same.
Yeah.
We want a safe community. They want crooks locked up, and I'm all about that. I can do that, right? That's my thing.
Yeah.
And they're raising kids in Snohomish County. They just have a different perspective.
Well, see, and all the big BLM movement, it was all propaganda too.
It was rough.
You know what I'm saying? And it's the whole mission of the BLM was to make black people distrustful of white people and drive that wedge even bigger than it was. And like, again, leading into an election cycle, let's fucking take our citizens and fucking just stir them all up like a hornet's nest and cause a bunch of turmoil. And in my opinion, it was a divide and conquer tactic, you know, because dude, black people and white people, you've said it 100 times today. We want the same things.
We do. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that so many people, they watch Fox News or they watch CNN and they see these narratives being pushed, and all of a sudden the white man's the enemy. And here's the deal. Like, you're a 17-year-old black kid and you're as a 17-year-old kid of any culture, very influenced, right? And now that becomes your truth. White people hate me. And that's fucking dark, dude. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw happen. So let me ask you this, because I remember during that time frame, some crazy legislation got passed. It was like, wasn't it like 0 foot pursuits for any reason or something? Or no, you couldn't foot pursuit without PC. And it's like, hey, dummy, we operate in the realm of reasonable suspicion. police investigations take place in the realm of reasonable suspicion. If we have PC, I don't have to investigate anymore, right? Yeah. So that got kind of crazy for a while, right?
Yeah, it was, July of 2021 is when it went into effect. And so they passed it in that session in 21. It was a mess, dude. And it was emotional.
You couldn't. So effectively, let's just paint a scenario where it's like, hey, armed robbery in progress. A guy just ran out of the front of the bank. He's a white dude wearing a green shirt, blue jeans, and red shoes. Yeah. Now, you're responding, and 3 blocks north of that, you see a guy matching that exact description. That's still not PC.
Yeah, and that's where we got into debates because they passed these laws, right, that are super specific. And for us, it was all about use of force. You have to be prepared to grab onto somebody in that context that you just gave, right? Well, because they're probably not going to stop.
Well, when you
we couldn't use force without probable cause.
The room, that's exactly my point. Like, yeah. Reasonable suspicion is where you have the power to detain. Yeah. The power to detain sometimes requires physical force.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
And so,
Terry, stop.
Do you think these people are just completely out of touch with reality and how the profession of police works? Or do you think this was just more intentional disruption of how a civil society works?
So I think 2 things. Not to be wishy-washy, I think the politicians are completely out of touch and they were super emotional at the time.
Yep.
And I think the activist community who pushed this legislation was 1,000% intentional and they want this on society. You know how I know that? Because they're still doing it to this very day.
Yeah.
They've seen the repercussions from what they were able to get past, and it was not good by any stretch of the imagination. And so they are still pushing it. So it was intentional on one part, and the politicians were naive and bought off on it emotionally.
So you as sheriff, you said July of 21, you effectively, I guess horrible. Terry stops are basically a thing of the past now.
Horrible, man. Yeah.
What do you tell your guys?
Man, we did the best we could. I mentioned my team a lot. We had a fantastic team. So we pulled we start with the supervisors and we put them all into a room.
You didn't just send an email and call it good?
No, I did not. This was in person and a whole team up there, including myself. And it wasn't popular, I'll be honest with you, because this is what it came down to. Our rules were changing, and whether we liked it or not, we had to honor the rules. I can't tell deputies go out there and don't listen to these were actual laws. Signed by the governor.
Yeah, I couldn't, right? They're going to get hemmed up if
and
they
I didn't
don't
want
do
that.
Of course not. Yeah.
But we also have an obligation to the community. And this was the whole thing, especially when it came to people. We deal with a lot of people in a mental health crisis. Sometimes there's a law broken in the process. Sometimes it's just a mental health crisis. And then it was use of force and then police pursuits. We had to deal with all this stuff. And we had about 6 weeks, which is not a lot of time, to do all the research. I mean, life-changing in the world of policing, right? About how we're going to do our job. We got 6 weeks to figure it out. Thank you very much, state legislature. And so we're trying to figure this stuff out. And, you mentioned Wells a couple times, so I don't mind saying his name. He was at the state at the time, teaching, doing great work down there. He had, and I've heard him say this, so I think I can say it, he had difficulty figuring stuff out. He'd actually would reach out to the people who authored these laws to say, what do you want us to do? Just tell us.
And he's one of the sharpest dudes I know.
He's so sharp, and they couldn't give him an answer, Greg. Yeah. So what am I supposed to tell my people?
Yeah, the people people that legislated it don't even really know.
They don't know. It was emotional. They don't know. So we're trying to figure this stuff. So we made the best decisions we could. And then every individual department in the state of Washington had to go through that with their people. So we got everybody in a room. It was an open session. We said, this is the course we're taking. We got a lot of tough questions. And again, some people weren't happy. This is what it came down to. It said, I'm not abandoning my community. I go, because I didn't want people to get hemmed up legally about using force was the big thing.
Yeah.
You had to have probable cause. That's just not real. It's not it's just not what if we have PC, great. But we're not always there, but we have to make an act, right? I said, we're going to be okay. I go, every sergeant, which is a supervisor, has the discretion to either go or not go to a call, but we want you to at least make a phone call and go figure out what the heck is going on. If you deemed it appropriate, and this is to alleviate some concerns, you are not going to face internal discipline for messing up this colossal thing that politicians gave us at the time. And we stayed true to our word because, man, It only lasted for a little less than a year because they changed all the law.
Well, they realized
how stupid it was, which is just how often in history does that happen? That the legislature passes all these laws, literally the next session they change them all back.
Yeah. I wonder why that was.
Oh my, it's so frustrating. But that time, no, it was a tough time in history, man. And
dogs were pretty much unusable, right?
They tried to ban police dogs in Washington State.
That's right.
And they were not successful, but they tried. And I'm sure they'll be back at some point. So that didn't happen. But
all these motherfuckers that they just want to embolden criminals. It makes, if you just apply common sense, detach politically, detach emotionally, and step back and say, why would you want to destabilize our communities? Is because they want to fucking just cause the fucking, I honestly think it's the intentional destruction of America, man. And it starts with our communities. It starts at a local level. Why in the fuck would you ever want somebody that's committing a crime, a violent crime? Wells told me there was fucking even murder suspects. It's like, well, we have a description.
Yeah.
But that's not PC.
It's not PC. So you couldn't chase them in a car.
So what do we fucking do?
Yeah.
You know, if you're legislating rules that are allowing murderers and rapists to avoid being apprehended because of a little loophole in the law that you guys passed, that makes me land on the intentional destruction of America. And bro, and here's the thing, and I know you can't say this, but I can say this. Okay. Like, if my fucking daughter got raped by someone that you guys legislated an out for him to not be apprehended, motherfucker, you got a problem with me now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sooner or later, that's going to have to be what happens. But apparently enough common sense prevailed that they were able to reverse these laws then, huh? Did they just get pushback from every single sheriff and police chief in the fucking state of Washington, or what was the driving cause?
Well, I think it even goes before that. We lobbied against these changes before they even made them. And it wasn't a Republican or Democrat thing. It was sheriffs and police chiefs all over the state of Washington saying, please don't do this.
Yeah.
And we got, they always were criticizing us for not being part of the process after all this change, and it was a disaster, right? We're like, you son of a bitch. We were there and we told you not to do this, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely part of it. But they made the changes, and then they came back and made sweeping changes again. I mean, talk about a tumultuous 4 years, man. I've never seen anything like it. Literally changing the way we do business daily in our profession.
You stepped into the craziest 4 years that we may ever see. I think it's going to get crazier. But I'm also tinfoil hat motherfucker. I think it's going to get crazier, but those 4 years were tough, man.
Yeah.
And people already seem to forget. It's like, dude, the government had their boots on the back of your neck. I don't necessarily mean you, but they certainly did with you.
Yeah.
But all of us, right?
Yeah.
The government was flexing its muscles, trying to let everybody know that we're in charge and you're going to do what we say.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's literally anti to what this country was founded on.
Yeah. And so a couple of the changes, and we just saw this in this last session, the police pursuits has just been a big issue for me. I tried to tackle it. I lobbied, I did videos.
Let's talk about that, because a lot of people that aren't familiar with it, a high percentage of injuries happen as a result of high-speed chases,
sure,
right? And a lot of that is to citizens that are not involved in it, right? And so I think most counties would agree we pursue when it's necessary to pursue, and expired tabs probably aren't that reason.
Probably not anymore.
Right?
Yeah.
But what is your take on this, to just kind of educate people on the subject?
So the state legislature in Washington State in 2021, I'll say banned police pursuits. We could still chase, but the threshold was very high. It had to be the big one, right? Okay.
Like an abducted child or something.
Or a murder, or a stabbing, a shooting, something like that, right? And that's just not, while yes, it is important that we're able to chase those guys, I think I'm okay with that. There's all sorts of, I hate this term, but lower level stuff, because it's not really, it's, if your car gets stolen, that's important to you, especially if you use it to make a living. That's the example that is given. Why are we chasing a stolen car? What's it matter? And I think prior to them passing this legislation, they might have been able to make, I maybe see their point, right? But now we've had 2.5, 3 years of not being able to chase much of anything. And it is a Wild West show out there. It is crazy out there.
So I guess if you need to, I should say, you're setting a bad precedent.
Let me put it this way. This is the best example I can give. In the state of Washington, someone breaks into your house. That's a big deal, number one.
Yeah.
You're in my house, man, right?
Yep.
Steals your stuff, number two. Okay. The police are called, and we don't catch everybody, right? But let's say, and the crook that just broke into your house and steals your stuff makes it to a car, it's a get out of jail free card. That's not Adam thinking that. That is the way the law is written to this very day. Can you imagine, just imagine two things, what it does to the crooks. It emboldens them. They're like, oh, okay,
and what it does
I
for
can do this.
How the citizens feel about
the
that.
citizens, and then three, the deputies that just feel just literally handcuffed. They can't do anything.
Like my fucking babies were in that house.
I found this guy. I got him right here. I can pit him and put him in a ditch, but I can't because it's against the law. What does that do to society? And now we've seen it. We've seen it for a few years, and it's not good.
Yeah, I guess. And bro, this is a good conversation for me because I am of the opinion that a high-speed chase through downtown Snohomish probably isn't necessary over an expired tab, right?
Right, I agree.
But the other side of that is exactly if people know, shy of being a murderer, that I can just drive away, what's going to stop everybody from just driving away? And is that happening more and more, I'm assuming?
Oh my gosh, and I'm not kidding. It is a Wild West show, and this is what I mean by that. So one of the last things I did as sheriff is I went out and worked a week of patrol in South County on graveyard shift, right? And I'm pretty up to speed. I got a lot of friends still, that are rank and file and all that kind of stuff. So I felt like I was up to speed. But I was even surprised, man, as the sheriff of Snohomish County at the time, of the stolen cars out there. They're stealing cars to break into businesses. They smash in the front doors. They leave the stolen cars because they wrecked them and they don't care.
It's just a battering ram.
Run to another stolen car. And when I heard on the radio, I wasn't right there when it happened, but that exact scenario happened. They get into another car, we get behind them, and Greg, we watch them drive away. And they know it because they've been able to do it for 2.5 years.
Yeah, fuck that,
a civilized society can't function like that. But I agree with you. Let's say I use the example, if Boeing's getting off work on shift change, right, on the Boeing freeway, we're probably not going to chase a stolen car because it's highly likely it's probably going to crash into a citizen, and we don't want that, right?
Yeah.
But if it's 3 a.m. and no one's around,
so
you can't tell me not to chase a stolen car.
I guess what it should come down to then, if you're going to hire competent people as law enforcement, give them discretion.
How about discretion?
That word that I was struggling to find earlier. Because you're exactly right. If it's 3 a.m, the roads are wide open and nobody's out, like let either the patrol officer or maybe even the sergeant make that call, right?
It just has to be in balance. We're just so far out of balance in the state of Washington. Can't chase every car anymore. Those days, that's how I started in the career. We could chase anything and everything. Those days are gone. I'll acknowledge that and admit it right now. And I think a responsible pursuit policy is probably somewhere middle of the road.
Yeah.
The tabs, we're probably not chasing for that anymore. But I think a felony in progress, a stolen car and a burglary.
Come on.
Yeah, I think you got to chase that guy if the circumstances permit.
Or at least have it legislated where, hey, we may lean towards the side of not pursuing, but it's still in your back pocket, just so they don't get so comfortable knowing I can do whatever the fuck I want.
You cannot tell the crooks ahead of time that you won't chase them for all these level of cars. You just can't.
Yeah.
We've lived it, man. It didn't work. It did not work out for us. And we're not the only ones to do it. And I tried to say this out loud in 2022. The state of New Jersey did the exact same thing. They basically banned all police pursuits. It was such a shit show for them with stolen cars and burglaries and everything else. They went back and said, okay, we're changing this.
Good, man.
That didn't happen in Washington State. I want to make this distinction because I think it's super important, right? The legislature had a chance to change this law and they tubed it. Let's just call it like it is. The Democrats tubed it. So the ban is still in place. What happened was that they had to do a citizen referendum, and they came back, and 450,000 people signed these referendums in the state of Washington. So then they go to the legislative session, and they can either address them or not. They chose to address 3 of the 6 initiatives. Police pursuits was one of them. So we'll get it back. I think it actually goes in effect in June.
Okay,
but it wasn't the politicians that did it.
It was the people.
It was the people.
Yeah. Here's another one that's crazy is when they say, like, certain jurisdictions will say, we're not going to prosecute on theft unless it is above $1,000 or whatever it is. And then before you know it, you got guys with fucking duffel bags going into stores, and you see this shit all the time. And you know what you're starting to see more and more is other men like me in the store punching those fucking people in the face. Because if you're going to legislate our cops and disallow them to protect their communities, guess what? I'm going to protect my fucking community. But it's also probably, I'm sure that in San Francisco, if I'm in a fucking JCPenney's and some dude takes 25 shirts and is running out and I fucking drop him, they're probably going to be looking at me for assault charges, right? Yeah. Which I don't give a fuck. Like it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is being able to look at yourself in the mirror, right? If a man is terrorizing my community in my presence, I'm interjecting myself. Yeah. And I don't care if people like that or not. But that doesn't mean that the system's not going to try and come down on me, which they probably would, right? Yeah. And it's like, dude, you hamstring your cops so they can't do their job. Yeah. And now you're going to fucking tell citizens that they can't protect other citizens. Again, intentional destruction of America.
It says was it intentional or not? I don't know that I can say it's intentional, but you look at what's going on and say, like you mentioned, the Sanford, how can it not be intentional?
Yeah. And then you hear my favorite, or when you hear the stories of like legislators or people that had a hand in this, and it's like, hey, their car got stolen, and, and when they called 911, they said, sorry, we can't respond to something like that. Make an online report.
I know. And this is what drives me crazy, is this is not like rocket science stuff. You don't have to have PhDs to figure this stuff up about an orderly society. Yeah, people commit a crime, they probably earn a trip to jail, right? Within the parameters of discretion, right? And we've just gone so far away from that. But now people have been able to see San Francisco, Chicago, New York City. It's a disaster.
Fucking
right
disaster.
Now. It's a disaster. And I hope people are fed up. It's unfortunate that we had to come to that point, but man, I don't know. Intentional or not, I don't know that I can say that, but I don't know what else it could be at this point.
This may have been a better question for you when you were actively sheriff, because you can't pull all the strings you can pull now. Yeah. But what is your opinion on the massive fucking, I guess I was going to say opioid crisis, but it's fentanyl, just the addiction problem that is ravaging Western Washington? What do you think the right solution is to that?
It's massive, and it's above any local sheriff. But this is something actually I took to heart. We did a kind of super one of its kind youth program, and I saw fentanyl involved in these kids that we're trying to help, right? And so it's massive. It's everywhere. And then I saw that everybody sees it on the streets, like you saw the guy in Seattle.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. The first step to this is where it's it's above my level, even if I was still the sheriff, and it's the border. I mean, we talk about these cities and we've been able to see what happens with these just crazy policies. Look at the border. That is intentional. I have no problem saying that. 1,000% intentional.
Of course it is. And anyone that doesn't think it is, like,
unbelievable.
Go to fucking any politician's house. Yeah. Or like before Biden's State of the Union last week, what did he do? They put up giant fences around the Capitol. Yeah. You know, like, it's not up for discussion if fences work as a means of security, you know? So and we have the technology to, dude, bro, we could make that border so secure that one fucking person can't get across it if we wanted to. Yeah. And we're choosing not to do that. Yeah. And you know what's crazy is every time it comes up, like, you hear the president blame Trump still for the border crisis. And it's like, are you people really just falling for that fucking propaganda? Yeah. Like, bro, you've been president for 3 years. Yeah. Not everything is Trump's fault, but the border's still Trump's fault. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Fentanyl's tough. And again, I worked a lot within this community when I was the sheriff. And I think it's very hard. And as a society, we have to come up and make some big time decisions. And that is this. So like the overdose that you described in Seattle, we come across that on the streets all the time. And what do? We get them to the hospital. We get them to help. Even if we do like a commitment for them, they're in and out in a matter of hours. They're in and out of the hospital, right? We have to decide as a society. Police only have so much authority, and I've said this publicly. I don't want any more authority. This is up to other people than cops on the street about whether we keep people Are we going to keep people who are addicted to fentanyl, maybe can't care for themselves? I would make an argument someone that's either unconscious or foaming from the mouth and overdosing from fentanyl probably can't care for themselves.
Yeah.
And probably need to go somewhere for a while.
I agree.
But man, as a constitutional person who raised my right hand, I'm like, I don't want authority for cops to be able to house people. I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
But I think we are the ones who run into people on the street in that scenario. We should be able to get them somewhere, and more like doctors and things should decide, okay, you're going to go away for 30, 69, I don't know, whatever time frame it might be. But there has to be a way out though too for people, because it's the United States of America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, and I love that you said that, because that's the truth, right? It's like, on one hand, if you want to fucking kill your body with drugs, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you want to fucking lock yourself in your basement and fucking smoke meth until you fucking die, I don't care if you want to do that. What I think is, once your addiction starts impeding how a normal society functions, now the normal society gets to have a say in how you get dealt with. Yeah. And I don't think it's just put them all in jail. I think it is, because bro, you've seen this a million times too. As I saw in the short time that I was a cop, people are in the back of your patrol car, you're taking them to jail. And I remember one woman specifically, I'm like, man, we're having a good conversation. So your brain seems to function at 100%.
I've heard that so many times.
I was like, you seem like a nice woman. Yeah. Like, why in the fuck are you in the back of my police car for methamphetamine? Yeah. And then the story comes out. I hurt my back doing this, and I got addicted to fucking these pills that were prescribed to me. And then you know where the story goes, right? We have to have compassion for those people, bro.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
It's not just lock them up and throw away the key. These people are fucking victims of this big pharma assault. And what do you do with that? You know? And again, like, I honestly have arrived at, if your actions are impeding how a normal society functions, now this society gets to impede on how your life functions, because that's not disallowing them any freedoms, right? If you're shitting out front of a business, all right, you're now impeding our society. Yeah. All right, we don't poop in front of fucking people's businesses, but in Seattle, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You can put your tent up, you can urinate, defecate all over the place, and nobody cares. Bro, that's the kind of shit that caused the plague in medieval Europe. Like, we have to, at a minimum, run a society based on cleanliness and just an understanding of basic human behaviors. And you guys are deviating from that. So now we get to deal with you. And I do think it should be a robust treatment facility. Yeah. And again, it goes back to, we spend so much money on bullshit. Yeah. Bro, you could have a fucking treatment center in fucking Soto somewhere that could house 10,000 people. Yeah. You could.
It comes down to this, Greg, involuntary or voluntary. We have voluntary places people can go, but these people on fentanyl are not going to make that decision.
Of course they're not.
That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So we as a society have to decide, okay, are we going to house people involuntarily? They have to detox. That's why I am a fan of jail, for people to go there. It's not a solution. I want everybody to hear it's not a solution, but if they can get in jail, detox a little bit, where we have outstanding medical stuff in jails these days. It's crazy, especially in Snohomish County. They're fantastic. But can they make a better decision? I told politicians when I was the sheriff this. I said, you build me another facility, use a wing of the jail if you want, right? We had these discussions. And instead of going to jail, we brought them somewhere else, right? Because only once they're in there, judge has the authority to release them. I don't, okay? Or if it's like some type of involuntary commitment, if you want to build the facility, stop using my jail. I'm all for it. I don't want people high on fentanyl in the jail, right? That's bad news for us for liability. We're just not there yet as a society. We're just not there yet.
And one thing that I think is a misconception is people think like allowing these people to have their rights to, like, we're not going to trample on their rights. They're still citizens. It's almost like they want to put that out there from a place of compassion. Yeah. Any patrol officer can tell you, these people are literally in a living hell.
It's inhumane.
It is. That's what I'm saying.
It's inhumane.
There's nothing. There is nothing compassionate about leaving someone out in a tent when it's 28 degrees out, high on fucking drugs.
Totally agree.
So, fuck, man.
We just solved all of society's problems right there, man. We're good.
Well, bro, it's weird because we're of the age. How old are you again? Oh, you said 51. That's right. Just had your birthday. So I'm 43. I'm a little bit behind you. But when we were little boys, like when I was 15 years old, I could catch the bus to Seattle and skateboard down there.
We did. I did exactly that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was safe. My parents weren't concerned that their 15-year-old son was in Seattle. Bro, my daughter turns 15 in 2 weeks. And she has great jujitsu. And she's probably as tough as a 15-year-old girl could be. Yeah. She ain't spending a day in Seattle.
Not a chance, man.
Not a fucking chance,
and
dude.
That saddens me, but I'm feel the exact same way.
And so it's like we have got a front row seat from the time we were boys until who we are today to see the unbelievable downward trajectory that the Pacific Northwest see. Same with Portland. As soon as I got my license, 16-year-old kid, me and my friends would hop in my car and we'd spend a weekend in Portland. Yeah. And it was Burnside Bridge and skateboarding and all that stuff, dude. It was cool. Yeah. Not a chance anymore. And it's like, okay, if we've seen the downward trajectory we're on and where it took us in our lifetime, what's going to happen over the next 10, 20 years? You know, and at some point we have to realize it's not sustainable. We're on an unsustainable trajectory. So what do we do about it, dude? You know,
get off our phones and start interacting as human beings, get in a room and talk to each other. That's a pretty dang good start, but I don't have the overall solution for society. We got to get away from this partisan political stuff. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
We have to. That's part of it too. I just don't get this political party stuff. I don't.
These fucking people want us to be all in on one side or the other.
They do.
Because then we're basically, it's a form of control. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I honestly think I come from a place of compassion and wanting to help people. Like, I think that we should have robust treatment centers. I think we should be using plant medicine. I think we should be using ibogaine and ayahuasca with these people. And some people think that's crazy. More drugs to solve other drugs. It's like, no, this is Mother Nature. Yeah. It's very different. But even if you have solutions or ideas that are from a place of like compassion, again, like you already said it, I don't think society's ready.
They're not, because we were doing all the stuff that we're talking about. We were doing at the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office when I was sheriff. We were going in this direction. If we could get people treatment instead of jail, sign me up. I said it publicly at the time. I'm all for it. And then what did one political party do? The Democrats to me in 2023. They're like, get Adam out of office at all costs, man. I'm not joking. It was crazy. And so that's the part that we're not over yet as a society. I think they kind of saw me as, well, not saw me. They flat out said it. Right winger, constitutionalist, racist. Yeah, they threw that at me, and they wanted me out of office. But Greg, what they couldn't do is get in a room and talk to me and figure out what have you really done at the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. Because like you, if you want to sit down and talk about policy all day long every day, and I'm going to win that. Yeah, with my opponent, any opponent you throw at me, I'm comfortable with that, right?
Yeah,
that's not what they did. They saw Adam as a political adversary. And they wanted me out of office no matter what. And they did it. And they were successful. So unfortunately, I think that cycle will continue. It's partisan political bullshit is what it is.
Yeah. And you know who the victim is society.
Well, I agree. I mean, we were doing some cool stuff, man. Like the stuff we mentioned talking together about race and policing, right? Dude, we did all that. Dude, I started a one-of-its-kind youth program helping youth in Snohomish County that we were literally changing lives. And I don't know if you know how much screwed up youth are these days. They're messed up in the head, dude. Messed up in the head. And that's no judgment. Some of my own kids have been there, right? That's real and personal to me. And we were helping kids. None of that stuff got talked about in 2023. I tried, worked really hard. But it was a partisan political thing, and it worked, man.
Yeah, imagine that. You wanna talk about empowering our youth and addressing the fucking addiction crisis, which has absolutely destroyed Western Washington. Yep. And they just want to say, no, you're racist. Get them out of here.
You might not lean towards the right political party that we like, so we're going to get you out of office. Did any of those people sit in a room and talk with me? Nope, not at all. Not at all. So that's the frustrating part for me.
Yeah, it's because, bro, you fucking challenged his Royal Highness Inslee, and now it's personal for them. You know,
very personal,
which is just pathetic, dude.
It is pathetic.
What I don't understand is it's like, I feel like we've allowed some of the weakest, most incompetent members of society to rise to these positions of power through this political game that's been created. And now, after they've arrived at this position, they're implementing policies and they're doing things that is massively destructive for our society. How much longer can we just sit back and allow this, dude? Something has to change.
I hope. Well, the people got to get involved.
The people,
regular people, not politicians, man. And we saw that on a small scale, but important scale with the initiatives. You know, that just, they would not have changed those laws back if it wasn't for people. A lot of people just fed up. So that kind of what we mentioned before, is the tide turning. I don't know if it is or not. I hope it is, but we saw it to a small extent with the initiatives. Those politicians would not have changed that because they had the opportunity the year before. So we know that's not an assumption. We know they were refusing to change it. But when 450,000 people, regardless of political parties, get behind something, they actually did listen and they change it.
Well, at that point, they kind of have to, right?
They have to. Yeah. They didn't want to. They did not want to. And it was, I try to stay away, as we've talked, from the partisan stuff. It was only one party. Only one party passed this stuff. That was the Democrats.
Yeah.
The Republicans, no matter what you think of them, and they don't have a good reputation in Washington State. They just don't.
Yeah.
They were very common sense oriented. Like, maybe we shouldn't be passing all this legislation in the height of 2020 when everybody's emotional. No, the cops can't just not chase cars. They just can't. I mean, they said all the right things, and it was political party based. Unfortunately, that's the part that pains me still. I just don't like that stuff.
Man, it's nuts, dude.
It is nuts.
It's nuts that's where our society has landed. Yep. And that's how we legislate and that's how we enforce. It's fucking gross, man.
Yeah, it is gross.
So, I mean, I know you may not want to get into all the ins and outs of losing that campaign because technically that's who you work for now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
Then that's what I was going to say. What was that transition like? Because typically when a sheriff loses, they kind of just ride off into the sunset, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, this has been my agency for 26 years and I'm not going anywhere.
That was my decision. And it was kind of an easy decision to get to. I've been here for a long time. I'm staying. I do still have to work. I'm not like independently wealthy or anything like that. The people we talked about.
Yep.
And and I'm the guy who always have other things going on and stuff too. I like to be busy, but the transition, this is a decision that I made, with her, my opponent specifically. I didn't care to meet with her. But I took it a step further than when I took office. They no-personed us at all. There was no transition. I made sure my team set up her new team for success. That was important to me. As difficult as it was, I go make sure that we call them bureau chiefs coming in. Make sure you square them away with everything that you possibly can. So we had training for them and stuff. I, as a person, chose not to meet with her, but this is the reason why, is because this election got very personal for me. And the stuff that we already talked about that she kind of painted me as, that I'm not, that pains me, man. And I saw people look at me, during this, like I got out and talked to a lot of people. They look at me with kind of that hate and discontent in their heart. I'm like, dude, you don't even know me. But because of what was said about me, I'm like, I'm not just going to go, oh, that's politics. Everything's okay. Yeah. I'm not. And so,
well, bro, and that's an important thing to say because you've mentioned throughout the show, I have an open door policy. Yeah. I love sitting down with people. Yeah. I love getting other people's perspectives. And a lot of times that's proved beneficial for you. Yeah. But there's also consequences in this world. Yeah. And when you say things about people or paint people in a certain light, or like you just said, making the citizens look at you through a lens that is untrue. It's tough. But there's consequences for that. Yeah. And to you guys, this is just business as normal. Yeah. But for men like us, that our reputation means a lot to us.
Somebody has to be willing to go, it's just not okay what you did and how you did it.
That's right.
That's how I am. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit down and say, oh, it's like if all we did was debate policy and she kicked my butt in the election.
Hell yeah.
Shake her hand, man. Good job, whatever, right?
Yep.
Let's move on. That's just not how it went down though. And anybody who paid any attention to all of the election knows that without just me saying it. So the transitions, it's been just like that. Actually, I saw her for the first time at the funeral for Trooper Gad this last week. That was the first time I seen her. They've left me alone. I want to be fair and objective. They've left me alone. They haven't messed with me, anything like that.
Yeah.
And so actually, I tested for a new job within the sheriff's office, kind of internally, same rank and all that. And I actually won that out. I didn't think they were going to give it to me because of all this stuff, but they did. So hey, I'm being fair.
Well, dude, I wonder if in the people that play these games, if it's like just another day at the office for them. Like, hey, we talk all this mad shit about each other. We paint each other to be terrible human beings. Yeah. We make up all these lies, and then the chips fall where they may, and it's hugs and high fives after that.
It is.
Because you see that a lot in politics. You see these people, and it's like, hey, once the election's over, it's all good. Actually, you want a spot on my cabinet and all this shit. And it's like, what that tells me is like, you guys are playing in the realm of theater.
Yeah. So both in 19 and then when I ran in 23, I think I didn't stoop to those levels. I think I'd say I didn't make it personal, and
good, bro.
And I had advice for people to tell me to do it, and I got the same advice that I'm sure she got, that which she ended up doing, that kind of the website thing I told you about, where I said we can go basically trash her and keep you apart from it. I go, no, I don't need to do that. I've been the sheriff. I'm very proud of my record, so I actually stood up and said, no, I'm not going that route. But
hey, shocking, a man of integrity.
I'm just saying, and you know, and then it's so funny because she ran on ethics and leadership and integrity and all that stuff. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me with the stuff you're saying. You know, I mean, give me a break. So yeah, I'm just not willing. At some point, maybe I got to get over it. I don't know, but I'm not willing to just go, yeah, that's politics, and go, hey, everything's great, because it's not. You don't get to say that. That's my personal integrity that you're insulting as a human being for a year. For a year, I had to put up with that. My 82-year-old mother lives about a mile and a half from here in Lake Stevens. She had to hear all that bullshit from her. Yeah. That's not okay with me. I didn't do that to her, right?
Yeah.
That's why do politics have to be that way? Let's make it nonpartisan.
It's by hook or by crook. They'll say whatever they need to say.
Yeah.
And fuck that. That in itself is one of the problems with how the whole system works. Yeah. You know, and again, to go back to RFK, something I heard him say on his Instagram last week, he goes, hey, all of these people that are trying to get Trump removed from the ballot, to put him on all the ballots. Yeah. He goes, I want to beat him. Exactly like you said, I want to beat him on my policy.
Yeah.
And he goes, if I were to beat President Trump because we allowed judges to disallow him to run, that is not something I would be proud of.
Not okay what's going on.
Let me beat him on policy.
I know.
And that's exactly right, dude.
It is scary what's going on.
But again, as long as millions of dollars and like all these lobbyists, these major corporations, big pharma, all these other world leaders in people's back pockets, like, it's so fucking dirty that I don't know if men that just want to, I shouldn't say men and women that just want to run on who they are. Yeah. And hey, let's go out there and have a fucking debate and let the American people decide based on who the fuck we are as human beings. Those days are probably over, man.
I think so too. Unfortunately, I think so too.
You know,
I don't know if there's ever going back. I just don't know.
Until the apocalypse hits, and it's gonna, and the fucking, the entire country is gonna go through a period of fucking hardship.
Yeah.
And bro, if you're wondering how you're gonna fucking feed your kids tomorrow, and there is no grocery stores, and there is no fucking Instacart, and there is no DoorDash. There's literally slugs and squirrels in your backyard. Yeah. That's what I tell my girls all the time. It's like, hey, when the apocalypse hits, we're not going to be eating salmon and venison.
Yeah.
We're going to be eating slugs and squirrels. Wow. Ew, that's gross, Dad. And it's like, I'm not trying to scare them, but I also think that the likelihood of going through some very destabilized period of time is probably more likely than not. Yeah. And I just want to, I want them to have an understanding that it's like, this is a possibility. Yeah. And if you look through history, people go through hardships. That's what humanity does. And we endure, and the people that can endure the hardest make it through to the other side, and we kind of restart and rebuild from there. And to tell you the truth, I don't necessarily think that that's bad. Yeah. I think that that's kind of a natural cycle of life. And I think that that's what, and again, is it going to happen right now. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. But even if it doesn't happen for 100 years, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens, you know?
We're doomed.
But then the other side of it is, bro, we're living in crazy times. And I think I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To just live a mundane existence. I use my grandfather as an example all the time. I was telling my jiu-jitsu students about it last night. He worked in a shingle factory where he sawed shingles for 65 years and then he died. Yeah. And it's like, he was a good man and lived a good life, but I don't think that's for me. I think I'd rather live in a post-apocalyptic America, running around, starving to death and doing what fucking human beings have done since the beginning of time. So
there you go.
All right, bro, we're at 2:15.
That's crazy.
I know it goes quick,
it
right?
It does, yeah.
I'll tell you right now, dude, we share good energy and we can have fun conversations. So cool. This inevitably will not be the last time we sit down and do this. As long as you're interested in coming back on at some point.
Dude, I love this stuff, man.
This is fun, bro.
Let me know. I'll be here.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I didn't give that any thought. I want people to wake up, man. I do. Just wake up to all the stuff that we've talked about today. And I want to hear, because I really got dinged as like this partisan guy in 23, and I'm not. I want what's best for people, man. I hope I'm a people person, right? And let's just get away from this partisan political stuff. And I don't know. I got high hopes, right? I'm a hopeful guy. I'm an optimist, right? I think it's important to be that way, but I'm a little concerned about where we're going. I hope, like we talked about, I do hope the tide is turning. I really do. Both in public safety and some of the other social stuff we talked about.
Yeah. Well, it's like they say, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now too. You know what I'm saying? Well, thank you for doing this, man. Do you still have any active social media?
Oh yeah.
What is the best way? If a lot of times listeners listen to guests and want to ask them a question or connect, are you on Instagram?
Barely, but I am. I'm not a big social media guy. So I do have an Instagram and I do have a Facebook. And actually, we talked a little bit about the transition. My Facebook has a lot of followers because of what I said about the governor in 2020.
Yep. Okay.
And a lot of people follow that and they're fantastic people, but I'm not the sheriff anymore. And it's Sheriff Adam Fortney on Facebook. Super easy to find, all that kind of stuff. Same on Instagram. I'm probably changing that in the near future. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm honestly just not sure what to do with this page. So,
I think you could probably change just the title.
I'm just going to change the title, I think.
And just have it be Adam Fortney.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm starting this real estate stuff, my business on the side. So that's kind of my future, but I am staying at the sheriff's office long term. I truly am.
Yep.
So Facebook is the easiest. I'm old. I turned 51 yesterday.
Yeah.
So Facebook is like my go-to, and I'm not very good at Instagram, but I am there.
Okay. I'll put a link to your Facebook in the show notes then.
That'd be awesome.
Then people can connect, because I think that's important, man. And it's interesting because the podcasts, bro, there's plenty of episodes where we're just talking shit and being dorks and having fun. But there's a lot of episodes too where like a certain segment touches someone in a certain way and they reach out and have a conversation with you about it on Facebook Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
And something happens, bro.
Yeah,
and people change and it builds relationships. The power of social media and podcasting and stuff, on one hand, it's kind of a cesspool, but on the other hand, it's like anything. A tool can be used for good or evil, right?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people that are finding the good in this. So
right on.
Thanks again, man. And I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you, sir.